And Town Board, we are live.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the November 14th work session of the East Hampton Town Board. Carol, would you please read the roll call?
Councilmember Kurt Gonzalez.
Present.
Councilmember Weeks.
Present.
Councilmember Overby.
Here.
Councilmember Rogers.
Present.
Supervisor Winston.
Present. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America.
to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today's meeting will start with a public portion where any member of the public may address the board on any topic. We ask that you please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. That will be followed by bids presented by our purchasing director, Jeannie Croza. We'll have the picnic gazebo proposal for Wainscott Green, proposal for structure at Wainscott Green, affordable apartments overview, the +1 ADU New York State grant program, emergency communications upgrade status update, and the Amagansett Life Saving Station parking proposal. That'll be followed by liaison reports, and we do have a few resolutions today. But first of all, I'd just like to congratulate our newly electeds and re-electeds. Our colleagues will continue on this board after my departure next year. Congratulations, Kathy, on becoming an elected supervisor, and David for re-election as council member. Thank you. Anyone who steps up to serve their community as an elected official sacrifices a great deal in doing so, and they have to have a commitment, a real purpose in doing so. So for all those who ran for elected office, thank you. That's what makes our democracy work. And I'm very pleased with the outcome, and I think there'll be an extremely smooth transition and continuance of all the good work that we've been trying to accomplish here on the town board.
And I would just like to add, thanking Sylvia and Peter for your years of service to the town as well, and for all the impacts that you've made on our, positive impacts that you've made on our community.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Kate.
We do have a sign-up list. There's one number. I'll go to the phones after asking all in the room who want to speak during public comment. David Buddha. 3 topics and 3 minutes or less, right?
Good morning, David Buddha. I have 3 topics to address. I get all of 1 minute for each. First item is, I see that on your agenda today, you have a proposed resolution to go ahead and agree to acquire the Bustamante properties in Montauk. At the public hearing, I raised what I thought were serious questions with regard to the scope of the purchase. Having reviewed the contract, it looked like the contract specifies that you are to purchase 12.6 acres, 7 different parcels, although the 3 vacant buildable lots are the focus of the acquisition. In order to determine, and there were title questions and serious questions in my mind as to those 4 small lots, which are really portions of roadways or abandoned roadways or actively used roadways, whether or not they were appropriate, whether or not the sellers had title, and whether or not the full $4.4 million could properly be allocated to just the 3 building lots, or whether or not a price adjustment was required. Anyway, I raised these questions. I have not received the survey, I have not received the appraisal. I've filed a FOIL appeal. It's been ignored. I've requested information from the town by way of FOIL with regard to the urban renewal map modification that occurred back many years ago. I have not received that. It's as if FOIL requests and FOIL appeals fall on deaf ears, and that's really a shame. Also, with regard to this, if you are going to consider adopting this, you have not had a discussion of this $4.4 million acquisition, and yet the resolution is here on your work session agenda. I think that this topic deserves some clarification and discussion by the board. Topic 2. On today's discussion, there will be a presentation. It seems to be an annual thing now for the past several years, emergency communications update. And whereas back in 2017, there was a proposal for $11.1 million expansion and update of the emergency communication system, the price tag keeps growing and growing, the needs keep growing and growing, the number of sites keep growing and growing, the height of the towers keeps growing and growing, even right outside this building, although that's not yet done. Back a year ago, the last presentation stated that the Camp Blue Bay site acquisition, quote, would complete the emergency service communication network, end quote. According to today's presentation, that was not correct. Apparently, there's a need for an additional $5 million, and we are now about to expand our emergency communication system from within the town of East Hampton all the way to Shelter Island, because apparently the shortest and best way to get from Springs to Montauk is via Shelter Island. What I would like to know is what precisely does $4.8 million buy in the proposal that you received from Motorola? Which outside experts, true experts in the system, in emergency communications, have determined that there is a need for a redundancy system, a backhaul system that is triggering the need for all these additional sites and locations and expenditures. Topic 3, you're going to discuss today the presentation, I think by Mr. Shantz probably, of accessory dwelling units. He's been busy organizing and clarifying all the rules and regulations and websites. But I did find one thing that was troubling. It was a reference to a town website that is a summary of the affordable accessory apartments in the residential area. And there's a statement, I'll read at the end, that says the addition of an affordable accessory apartment may trigger the need to update an already on-site sanitary system and/or the installation of a new one. Such activities will require the approval of Suffolk County. You may be eligible for a water quality improvement grant under the town's septic incentive program. For more information, contact the Natural Resources Department. It seems to me that the Natural Resources Department and the Community Housing Department seems to have forgotten that there are strict limitations on how those tax funds can be used. The 20% portion of the CPF fund that has been authorized for water quality improvements is clearly defined in both state and town code. The projects that fall within water quality improvement projects, i.e. those that can be funded by the 20% set aside, such projects shall have as their purpose, and I'm reading now from state law, the improvement of existing water quality to meet existing specific water quality standards. Projects which have as a purpose to permit or accommodate new growth shall not be included within this definition. Likewise, you are obliged to, in the town code, include a provision on the definition of water quality improvement projects, subsection F, that says projects which have as a purpose to permit or accommodate new growth shall not be included within this definition. Adding a new accessory dwelling unit to an existing residence and having to expand or replace the septic system is clearly new growth. And although you might be able to properly use the additional CPF funds that are going to come by way of the affordable housing 0.5%, I respectfully suggest that it's improper, entirely improper to use any of the CPF funds for that purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I think the operative word there is may be eligible, but thank you for pointing that out.
It doesn't say may or may not, it just says may.
Is there anyone else in the room who would like to address the board in public comment? Do we have any callers on the line?
We do have one caller on the line. Just give me one moment. Caller 5057, you are on the line.
Talk to you briefly about Rowdy Hall and the fact that the facade of the building
Sorry,
has now been
could the caller
painted
please
black.
could the caller please identify themselves? That got cut off.
Oh, yeah, this is Jeff Bragman calling. I'm calling about Rowdy Hall and the fact that the facade of the building has now been painted black in defiance of an architectural review board decision. And the reason I'm calling the town board is that the response of the town board so far seems to be inadequate to correct this problem, and it is a very serious problem. The issue may be, the question of the color of the paint may be small, and frankly, I've said to other people, I don't have a paintbrush in the fight, but the idea that an applicant can receive an adverse ruling from an administrative board and then just go out and paint the facade of the building in defiance is not something that the town can tolerate. And the fact that you've issued a summons into justice court or a stop work order is an inadequate step to take when you're confronted with an applicant who has completely defied the legal process. And again, it's a small question, but the fact that that building is black can't be changed by the justice court. They don't have the power to order equitable relief, as it's known in the law. They can fine a person, but as we all know, fining a person for a violation is basically a cost of doing business. And I might add that the Rowdy Hall group is pretty connected, or it appears to be pretty connected to the town board, which was celebrating its election in another restaurant owned by that company the night before, the night of this defiance of zoning. And another coincidence, which is disturbing, is that the attorney who very capably handled the case in front of the Architectural Review Board is now no longer working for the town. So I'm calling to say that if you want zoning and planning to have force and effect, if it means anything, and people are watching this, applicants are watching this, you cannot tolerate an applicant who defies the law and just rejects an order of the Architectural Review Board. There's a legal remedy. You can file a lawsuit and get it reviewed if they think the decision is wrong. And that principle, unfortunately, is what we're seeing more these days in America at large. And I hate to see it invade this community. We have a rule of law. It's what's protected the town of East Hampton since the days of Judith Hoke, when I was working with her. And you cannot tolerate this kind of activity without tanking the enforceability of your code. So I urge the town board to start this new political season by going to the Supreme Court in Riverhead and getting an injunctive order to paint the front of that building to a neutral color so it's like the status quo before, and let those applicants who are friendly with the town board exercise their legal rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bragman. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board? Do we have any other callers on the line?
No other callers on the line.
Okay, we'll move on then to our agenda topics. And first up, we have Jeannie Carrozza, who's going to present bids.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay. The first is an acceptance of bid for the Panago Tower extension. The apparent low bidder is Atlanta Trading and Engineering Consulting LLC, and the amount is $156,611.99. An extension of the Airport and Aviation Engineering Consulting Service. Sabick and Murray is the current engineering group for that. A rejection of the Parson Place bioswale repair rebid. The prices came in again too high, so then we'll have to think of another another idea for that area. And several notices. First is an RFP for audit services for the Community Preservation Fund and Housing Community Fund, printing of miscellaneous forms, windmill kitchen renovations, and hopefully we'll have an acceptance for the second house, phase 3, hopefully Thursday, if not, maybe Tuesday. And that's it.
Any questions for Jean? Thank you, Jean.
Thanks, Jean.
That brings up our next agenda topic, which is the picnic gazebo proposal for the Wainscott Green, and we have Carolyn Logan-Blick here. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Let me pause to just join the supervisor in congratulating the 2 members who are sitting on the right-hand side of the dais on their election. And on behalf of the Wainscott Citizens Advisory Committee, we are simply delighted at the opportunity to be able to continue working with you for 2, if not 4 more years. So congratulations.
Thank you, Carolyn.
The Wainscott CAC is so honored to have been invited to present. And again, I thank Deputy Supervisor Kathy Burke-Gonzalez for the invitation. Not 1, but 2 proposals for Wainscott Green, Rick Del Mastro Memorial Park. Head of the Wainscott Green Subcommittee, Sally Sunshine, will give the first presentation, to be followed by one given by Tom House of Hampton's Pride. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting us to present today. Can you hear me?
Great to have you here.
In accordance with the Wainscott Green Management Plan approved on August 15, 2019, we would like to present this picnic shelter proposal for the board's approval. To provide a bit of history, in 2019, the 1.1 acre property located at the corner of Eastgate and Montauk Highway, where the Swamp nightclub once stood, was acquired by the town using CPF funds along with a generous contribution from the Friends of Georgia Capon Foundation.
Sorry, Sally, could you possibly move that mic a little closer?
Sorry.
I think they're having trouble hearing you in the back of the room.
Just want to make sure it's on. Can you hear me now? Oh.
You have to push it a little further away.
All right. To provide a bit of history, in 2019, the 1.1 acre property located at the corner of Eastgate and Montauk Highway, where the Swamp nightclub once stood, was acquired by the town using CPF funds along with a generous contribution from the Friends of Georgia Capon Foundation, saving the Wainscott community and gateway to East Hampton from other potential fates, such as this proposed car wash. We thank you again. Today, the Wainscott Green, also named for beloved CAC member and local activist Rick Del Mastro, is the site to 3 memorial benches and a 4th one donated by Friends of Georgia Capon, 2 picnic tables generously provided by the town, and a few beautiful dogwood trees. Pictured here is the Wainscott Green in preparation for the Halloween on the Green community event. Tom House, who you will hear from shortly, started the nonprofit organization Hampton's Pride to pay tribute to the legacy of the swamp. Hampton's Pride has held 2 well-attended and meaningful events at the park. The park has become an informal meeting place for most of us here, and we often see people sitting in the sun while enjoying their lunch. Hopefully in a few months, they will have the option to sit in shade under the new shelter. As shown here on the draft landscape plan, the proposed shelter will be located to the north side of the park. Though shown here as 15 by 40, we propose a 14 by 20 shelter under which 2 picnic tables, 1 ADA compliant, will be kept. The proposed shelter shown here will be traditional 6-post pavilion composed of treated southern yellow pine and sealed in a mushroom stain. The pavilion will have a standing seam roof and charcoal to ensure low maintenance and longevity. We have engaged Stone Quest Corp in Amagansett, who looks forward to working with the town to map out where the cement slab will be placed in preparation for the delivery and installation of the shelter by family-owned and operated Amish Craft Barn located in Seaford. Amish Craft Barn has quoted $24,000 for the shelter, which includes delivery and installation. And Stone Quest Corp has quoted $9,200. With a 10% contingency, our total budget is $36,500, which we are overjoyed to report has been fully funded. Again, we thank this board and everyone who has helped turn this vision into a reality for the Wayne Scott community. Thank you for considering our proposal.
Thank you so much, Sally. Are there any questions from the board members about the structure?
No, so I know I met with members of the CAC and I fully support this. You heard me then when we talked about maintenance, and I think the choice of the vernacular of the design, the maintenance and longevity is what sticks out to me. It makes sure that it would be there for a long periods of time, and two, very easy and very attractive. The standing seam roof fits to what we're doing in other pavilions that the supervisor has done. I think the longleaf yellow pine, longleaf pine and the wood will, and that is being stained will prevent it from rot also over the years. And it'll provide enough size for the cover of the two picnic tables are there. And it's appropriate. So thank you for getting this far. I look forward to helping you gain further.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful that you were able to raise all the funding for this. Obviously, that kind of an amenity in a park is always welcome, to have a shelter from either sun or rain. And I look forward to the completion of the project.
Yeah, and the fact that the two picnic tables, one of them is ADA compliant, which is great. And, you know, we've come a long way. When you showed the car wash, I believe, liaison to the Wayne Scott CAC back then. And so the fact that we've acquired it, it's in Rick's honor, very special.
And I'm fully supportive of it. I think it's a beautiful shelter for people to enjoy as they enjoy the park. And much better than that car wash.
And I'm fully supportive as well, and grateful to the Wayne Scott CAC for all the hard work that they put into this.
So moving ahead, if you don't mind, since this is in the Buildings and Grounds facility in the Parks and Rec, which I'm the liaison to, and as we transition, the transition team, and by continuing those roles, I look forward to being a liaison to this specific section of the project, if you don't mind, Supervisor-elect, as we go, and we'll continue to conversate how we get this set for potentially early 24, obviously.
Great, thank you all so much for coming in and presenting this proposal. And again, we look forward to it being completed.
Sarah, did you want to say a few words?
Come on, Sarah.
No, does this represent an approval then to go forward?
We'll have to do
An
it.
official
Your
approval,
resolution.
but it looks like you have unanimous support. I did the math. It's looking good. So again, thank you all. We have another discussion about proposed structures at the Wayne Scott Green. We have with us today Tom House from Hampton's Pride.
We prepared, these packets were sent to you, but here's
Thank you, I'll take it. Thank you.
we also have a letter from most students.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity to present. Thank you to Ellen and Sally for the nice introduction. You all know me, but for the YouTube audience of the future, I'm Tom House, president of Hampton's Pride. I'm going to speak on the purpose and advancement of the nonprofit's funding goal to create and maintain an outdoor social area, historical marker, and memorial garden. Those three strands working together at the home of the former swamp. We're going to have a live demo by Gustavo Bonavardi, the renowned artist and architect that we've contracted with. He'll show you the model of the details and images of what we think is a spectacular and unique design that brilliantly weaves these three strands together in a way that we had never imagined. Lastly, we have a few words from Ken Lusbader, who is an East Hampton resident and historic preservation professional. He'll give us a little bit of the broader context about how this installation connects with other LGBTQ+ historic sites projects in New York, the nation, and the world. You may remember the article that started it all. The Power of the Guess Words. This was in July of 2020. It was born of, I would say, just the need to remind people of the history of that spot. My friend Rob Stewart, and who's also secretary of Hampton's Pride, had responded to an article in the paper and that said that a bench would have been dedicated to the LGBTQ plus population because of its significance, you know, as a disco, and my heart dropped. So I was like, wow, 25 years of history, please let it be more than a bench. And so I wrote this with all my heart, 3 weeks research. I am a teacher now at Bridgehampton School. I've been for 15 years now a teacher. Going back to my home in Springs, I would look left at the property that was abandoned, then listing, then bulldozed, and something's got to go there. Oh, please, you know, don't let this history disappear. And so in came this article. Spent a long time on it. I had to do a lot of history, though. I worked at the swamp for swamp and the Star Room for 20 summers. You know, a lot of hours on that spot. I felt very connected to it. I still had to do a lot of research. There were at least a dozen years that preceded me at the swamp, which was there for a generation. But from this article came the establishment of Hampton's Pride, which led to the first Pride parades in the history of the Hamptons. It was just one thing after another. It was, you know, I met Carolyn Logan Gluck, and I met Sarah Davison, and Dennis DeAndrea, and Rob Stewart. We walked the park together as a result of this article, and it seemed like a communal idea that yes, we do have to build something here. And so quickly, the idea came to me that, well, we have to form an organization to pay for whatever is going to go there. And that is the reason for being of Hampton's Pride. The company that I hired to help me with the articles of incorporation and then the, you know, all the documentation that goes to the IRS was way beyond me. I got a company to do that. They said, keep the mission statement broad, right? So here it is to celebrate and commemorate the East End's LGBTQ plus people and their allies. So you can see this project is perfectly in line with that. I wanted something very specific underneath that broad context to create and maintain a social area and historical marker on the footprint of the swamp. So that is our founding goal. We have a 501c3 public charity status was conferred very quickly after that in October, right after our first successful T-Dance fundraiser on the green. And then, of course, there was the expansion of the organization with the first Pride Parade. And this was the first one. In June of 2020, it was attended by 3 to 4 times the people that were expected. The village quickly saw that it was a needed community event, and they made it annual, 3rd annual. June 1st, 2024. Hope to see you there. But what are we commemorating here, right? So the swamp was an LGBTQ plus social hub for a generation. That original certificate of occupancy for 1.12 acres was granted in 1977 to a 2,116 square foot, 1-story black box disco. It had the chrome railings and smoked mirrors. It was famously known as the swamp. And 2,000 square feet, not so big. Right. The next year, it was expanded to include the Annex Restaurant. Those 2 buildings had a red brick courtyard, patio in the middle, and it was surrounded by tall trees and a high fence. And this predates me, but the 70s and the 80s, taking that turn into the parking lot of the swamp was sometimes a risky thing to do. And those tall trees and that high fence was important, right? You get in through the gate and then you have the dance floor, right? You have your happy place. Nobody's going to bother you there. And for that reason, over the 25 years of operation, the swamp was one of the most popular spots for the LGBTQ plus community, as well as for many celebrities and choreophiles. New word for me. In the Wainscott Management Plan, the Wainscott Green Management Plan, they said it was popular with celebrities and nightlife guests. And I said, what is a nightlife guest? You know, I searched for that, like definition of, synonym for, and up came the word choreophiles, which simply means people who love to dance, right? So there you have there's the dance floor in blue. That's what the swamp was about, getting in that gate, getting to the dance floor, to your happy place. And you'll see that this word, choreophiles, is very much at the heart of Gustavo's design. He is foremost replicating, reconstructing the dance floor in an outdoor space. So, and again, thanks to the efforts of the East Hampton Town Board, the Wainscott CAC, Friends of the Georgia Capon Foundation, the site today was saved, right? It is the Rickdale Mastro Memorial Park, Wainscott Green. What an extraordinary gift and what an extraordinary opportunity for what we consider the three constituencies: Wainscott, people of Wainscott, the town of East Hampton, and the Hamptons LGBTQ plus people and their allies. These are the people that we want to serve and please with this installation. So we looked at the management goals, and this project will increase use of the green and interest in the green. You'll recognize this language from the plan. It provides an attractive gateway to the business district. It has very joyful, engaging installation visible from Montauk Highway. It has an attractive sitting and walking area that is easily accessible to pedestrians from the business properties east of the site. You'll see the long bench conducive to meetings with friends, reconstructed dance floor for celebratory gatherings. We want to stress that this project is going to stay in the southeast corner of the park. Okay, it's not going to cross over the path. It will be connected to, but not dominating the green. When we zoom in on the details, as big as it may seem, it remains a modest proposal. The dance floor structure, we did the math, takes up 2% of the park's 1.12 acres. And already increased interest in the park due to the proposal. There were pictures after the CAC meeting where it was unanimously approved that we bring this design forward to you. There were pictures in the paper, social media posts, hundreds of glowing reactions and comments. There was just a serendipitous call from the acting director of the East Hampton Chamber of Commerce, inviting Hampton's Pride to the Santa Parade. They saw us, I guess, in the 375th, and that led to, oh, are you the group that's proposing this structure? We would really like to have some events there once that's built. So, and I just had another call, like, after the Santa Parade, let's talk, right? I understand life after parades. So how's this going to be funded? Well, we wanted to give you as much specific numbers as possible. We will realize this through donations to Hampton's Pride at no cost to the town, again, in line with our mission. To date, we've had only soft launch fundraisers, right? But we've already allocated over $100,000. We have 106 right now to launch the project, to begin construction with. That's, we raised a lot more than that, but, there's expenses for the organization, but that is just allocated for this project to start it. And then we've established now a record of successful fundraisers, including annual summer events at Longhouse Reserve and Wainscott Green. This will ensure project completion and ongoing maintenance. We're committed to working with local contractors. We expect that this project will be a local source of revenue. And we've already experienced some reciprocity. Local contractors are interested in and committed to working with us. There's an example on the next slide. These are 3.5-inch engraved bronze discs. That's the original logo that Gustavo Bonavardi meticulously replicated. You see the Jonathan, 70s, right? Jonathan Livingston-like seagull on the upper right. The Saska Surveying Company, after we created the design committee, contracted with Gustavo, had the swamp footprint surveyed. We wanted, the design to go on the footprint, right? We hired the Saska Surveying Company to help us do that. The last part of that, when those discs were glued down onto the stakes, I suddenly got an email from the surveying company saying, no, don't pay that bill, that's a contribution from us. So things like that are happening, and we expect them to continue. People will make money from this, it could be a good job, but also we think that parts of the community want to have their hand in it. Like we did those plantings. we created that bench. We helped construct that dance floor. The more local people do that, the more they feel the park is theirs, and they'll come and they'll use it. And hopefully it becomes a happy place for them as well. Subsequent to the meetings, which Sylvia was at the WCAC meeting where we displayed it, and David, thank you. You came to the one of the presentations of the installation at the Hampton Scribe Design Committee. Subsequent to that, any technical questions that came up, we vetted with Joe Palermo and Scott Wilson, including ADA compliance for getting up to what you will see is a raised platform for the dance floor, slightly raised platform for the dance floor. Just to remind you of the three strands that Gustavo has brilliantly woven together. First and foremost, celebratory outdoor social area. Next generation of East End's LGBTQ plus people and their allies gathering again in the very space their forebears once did. That is a kind of visual poetry that was made possible by the saving of this park. An historical marker honoring the generation of gays and lesbians who had a home there. And I also want to stress they had a home at other gay-owned and gay-friendly restaurants and bars that thrived for over 50 years along what was called Wayne Scott's Miracle Mile. Especially want to bring up the attic just to the swamp's east. That was in operation between 1970 and 1985. There was an overlap between the swamp and the attic. There was competition between them. People would walk from one to the other along Montauk Highway. They were all connected. But there's no place, where the attic is, there's no place like the Rick Del Mastro Memorial Park to create this structure and to keep this history alive. We think that this can be a repository, a collective repository of a half-century's local LGBTQ plus history. We can remember the attic, we can remember the other places along Wainscott there. And then lastly, in that 25 years of history was a very tragic period, mostly for gay men. And there is, along the side of the dance floor, as you'll see, a contemplative memorial garden offering an opportunity to pay tribute to hundreds, if not thousands, of East End souls lost during the AIDS epidemic. People have already sent in money saying, please engrave my son's name here. So we hope to do that. You'll see on the next slide, and Gustavo will present this for you, but 1, 2, 3, right? Number one, there's the celebratory happy place, right? The dance floor. And you see the beautifully shaped bench and the reconstructed dance floor. To the left, number 2, is the historical marker, which you'll see also has a very joyful and playful aspect to it. I'll leave Gustavo to show you that. To the right in that shaded area, to the right of the dance floor, that would be, we don't consider that part of the structure. It's a garden, right? It's a path and plantings, trees. And here's a peek of what it looks like if you're looking east. Gustavo will show you that in more detail in a bit. And here's our artist. Born and raised in New York City, master's in architecture from Princeton University. While at first integrating murals and sculptural elements into his architectural projects, he ultimately came to focus on his artistic practice, a diverse production ranging from austere minimal drawings to abstract geometric paintings and sculpture to somewhat figurative watercolors. His work has been exhibited widely, including solo shows at the Drawing Room in East Hampton, and is represented in numerous public collections. He draws more fully on his architectural background when working on large-scale urban projects, including Tribute in Light, the annual memorial of the September 11th attack at the World Trade Center. We'll see that on the next slide. An example of Gustavo's large-scale installations known the world over. Going from something of that stature to the next slide, we see a much more intimate, close to home, delicate, gorgeous watercolors. You may have seen these at the Drawing Room. So how lucky we are to have an artist with this range, talent, and accomplishment working on this project with us. And this is his time to come in and give you the details.
Your party.
Hello, hello.
Welcome, Gustav.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you, Tom, for that rather generous introduction, and thank you all for the opportunity to present my ideas for this project. Sorry I'm not there in person, but I think it's great. This gives me the opportunity to maybe play around with the computer model a little bit, which I think can give you the best sense of what this project is supposed to be like. I will be sharing my screen and going back and forth between images and this computer model. Fingers crossed that technically it all goes smoothly. So here we go, sharing screen. So starting with, oops, I'm already not on the right slide. How's that for technical snafus? Okay. So as Tom mentioned, sorry for all that. As Tom mentioned, is my screen on?
Yes, we
Okay,
see
great.
the
Sorry, it's a little, the Zoom thing is a little confusing. So yeah, it's a three-part scheme, and I think it was interesting how Tom had this so thought out, and as I began working on the project, it really began to become clear to me that it really does work that way. These strands really do work together. In this presentation, it's going to be a lot of visuals and not a lot of specific details, but I wanted to say that some thought has gone into how to implement and realize and construct this thing. There's nothing that's being proposed that's very complicated or out of the ordinary, and it should be very simple to execute. When Tom first mentioned the idea of this project to me, I went to visit Wainscott Green with him and was so pleased to see this beautiful park beginning to take form with Edwina von Gaal's beautiful design, and it's such a lovely asset for the community, and I think has incredible potential to become a really meaningful and beautiful part of Wainscott. In then beginning to think of the project overlapping the footprint of the swamp, because I think it is meaningful to use the actual location of where the building stood. There's something that just really resonates with that, this overlap was a little concerning of how it crosses the path and how to negotiate this. But Tom got a hand on the original submission to the building department for the construction of the building of the swamp, and it was great fun to look through it all and to see the organization. It was actually a pretty modest building, 46 foot square, and divided perfectly symmetrical and divided along a diagonal axis that separated the dance floor, which was the lower part, from the bar area, which was the upper part. So it was this big sort of diagonal division and symmetrical along the other axis. So the balcony then became the sort of main gathering place where people could overlook the dance floor and was a sort of hub. And the dance floor also seemed to become important because what better to celebrate or to rebuild or to bring back then the dance floor, which was such a part of that era, because I feel that we're not just sort of paying homage to the swamp itself, but the whole era, the period, the moment, the start of the whole gay rights movement and the exuberance of that time. And it's more than just the club of the swamp. It was interesting to me that I then began seeing that in the sort of graphics package, and like, matchbooks or that sort of thing, that this diagonal division was actually a big part of the club. It was sort of part of its identity. So that sort of reinforced the idea of respecting that and going with that. So when you do that, when you think about it that way, the dance floor portion, this triangle at the bottom, nestles in perfectly with Edwina's plan and sort of almost complements it, and it just sort of looks like it's meant to be. So now, with luck, I'm switching over to Yes. So here you'll see that same image of the plan, but I can zoom around a bit. And the first thing I have to do is, since we're all in agreement that we like this, we can add the picnic shed, which I'm not too sure the exact location of it, but it seemed to me the way the path was done that it was suggesting that this would probably be at least its approximate location. So that's the start. And then the next portion is, highlighting, is in a sense in response to Tom's question of what kind of bench. Sorry, computer model glitches. This could be the bench. So along that diagonal, and you can see the outline of where the building stood, but holding that diagonal, just a stone bench, just a standard, country garden bench, wall, sorry, that would serve as a bench. And the only thing is on one side, I'm suggesting that it could be curved, and in a sense, the different spaces along it sort of can encourage gatherings in different ways. So it's sort of more social. And I like the idea of this structure sort of suggesting an inside and an outside, that there's inside the park in a sense and inside the old swamp. The dance floor itself then would be reconstructed instead of elevating it, instead of it being sunken by 2 steps, so it was originally, it's now elevated. And it's just about 15 inches is what we're calculating now. It all depends on grading and stuff, but it's just somewhat elevated. And that way it seems to float, and it's again becomes a sort of celebratory space. And it makes the bench work on one side as a standard low bench, and on the other side have a more sort of stool height, maybe. And the idea is then that it would be made of decking, because I think that it's much more fun to dance on a more bouncy deck than it is on hard pavement or stone. And I feel that the deck makes it feel lighter and sort of a sort of softer space to inhabit. But that's supported by a stone structure that makes a grid, and inlaid in that stone structure in bronze or maybe carved, there's a variety of ways that could be done, could be song titles from all the different hits of that era. So the idea being that as you walk into this space and you begin to read these familiar titles, the melodies suddenly come to mind, and you find yourself, humming along to the different music that would have been from that period. So that's the part of the dance floor. But I also wanted to, of the social area, but I wanted to point out that this is all happening in a sort of wooded area of the park. So it would be shaded, and in a sense is tucked away. And I think that'll make for a very nice space, and it feels right that that's the way that is, but it also feels somewhat incomplete. It feels like there's still also something that you need to announce it. It needs to be celebrated, and it needs to be something that it draws attention. So I'll switch back now to more smoothly this time, I hope, to the images. So in that, taking that on, it seemed to me that that's the opportunity that the historical marker offered. Here was a chance to do something to draw attention and to invite people and to announce the space. Forever, artists have always found inspiration in nature, and adding color to a landscape when flowers bloom is so spectacular, and artists have inspired themselves with that for forever. And here's one example, which is Dale Chihuly's Reeds at Longhouse, which I look forward to seeing every year, which is just so spectacular. But there's also other examples of this. For example, why am I having such technical issues? My screen is frozen. Can you give me a moment? Anyway, the subsequent issues are other examples of artists using color in landscapes. For example, the Roy Lichtenstein in front of the Parish Museum and other works that Dale Chihuly has done and others. I have annoyingly on my computer, and it's not. Yeah, technically, I don't know what to do. So I'll just continue doing the presentation, and hopefully my video will come back live at some point. I apologize for this. In thinking it through, it seemed to me that the with color, which seems to be a go-to way of drawing attention and in fact sort of bringing life to a garden by adding color to it, is the idea of the pink triangle came to mind, which is really one of the defining images for the gay rights movement, for the LGBT movement. And the pink triangle is ubiquitous, and you'll hear more about that later in the presentation. It's a very important sign. And also the color pink just not only has references to the LGBT community, but is a color which sort of references nurturing and hope and compassion. And the triangle itself is a symbol also of strength and of hope and of solidity.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have the backup slides here. If you stop your screen share, I can put them up from here.
Yeah, and maybe if my screen comes back, because I would really like to show you the other model, but I can't even stop the screen share. I'm like just frozen.
Hudson, are you able to stop his screen share?
Trying that right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really sorry about this, guys. This has not happened before.
Wouldn't be the first time we've had technical difficulties in a presentation, just so you know.
Gotten me off.
Don't feel bad about it.
I feel awkward and.
No,
Don't feel bad at all. This happens with some frequency, so we're used to it.
Looks like we lost the smart board though.
This is happening. This is very odd. Oh, wait, hold it. Or maybe that was you disconnecting me, possibly?
Yes, I think that Hudson disconnected you.
Okay, good.
Oh, what are we looking at now?
So you start with the Longhouse image, and I can just quickly go through them. And
Yes, it's loading. It's trying really hard.
so we can start.
Screen up.
All right, the Longhouse.
So the Longhouse is the previous image, so this is fine. So the Longhouse is a wonderful example of the use of color in a landscape. Here are some others. The Roy Lichtenstein in front of the parish, another beautiful, stunning installation by Dale Chihuly, and Fountain by the artist Nikki de Sanfal. Also a beautiful use of color in the landscape. So I just wanted to show those. So, next slide.
Further?
Yes.
Okay. Just tell me when I get to the one you'd like me to stop at.
I'm just seeing one slide. That's why I'm just seeing.
Oh, your computer might not be caught up.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, what a catastrophe.
So Gustav, we're on the pink triangle slide by itself, and then the next slide is the disco ball plus pink triangle.
Okay, so the pink trial was the first. I can see what the images are, even though I'm not seeing you guys, but the pink triangle is a gay iconic image. And then I also thought of the mirror ball, which is just ubiquitous. It says 1970s disco and is a fun and very evocative idea. So you have pink triangle and you have mirror ball, and it's not obvious, at least to me, it didn't seem, but when you stack spheres, you get a triangle. You get a sort of pyramidal shape. And it just seemed like this is terrific. This is it. You know, you sort of stack a series of mirror balls and you get a pyramid, but it's actually what's called a tetrahedron, which you can do, which is a triangle in plan as well as elevation. And that way you sort of generate a pink triangle out of mirror balls. Next slide, please.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you're on the mosaic.
Yes.
Yes.
So here you can see that just any sphere rendered in mosaic basically begins to look like a mirror ball. So it's, you know, what is a mirror ball if not a sphere, mosaic, and mirror? So it seems like this can really work. And also mosaic is really one of the go-to materials of mediums for public art. It's so durable and there's years of working with it. This spectacular New York City subway mural is really beautiful. So the idea of using mosaic just seemed like a great option. The next slide, please.
Yep, we're on the glass.
On the glass, okay. So it seemed, I wanted to point out that, again, this material that we'd be using, the glass, is glass that's for mosaic, and it's a hand-rolled glass. We'd be using a spectrum, a variety of different pinks, and even these sheets of glass when they're manufactured are not even entirely the same color themselves entirely. They have variety to them. They're handmade.
I think we lost him.
Yeah, we just lost him.
So Tom, if you want to.
Tom, you want to hop up?
We'll wait maybe if he comes in. Hi.
Hi.
So I thought the presentation so far is going great as far as the technical issues. No problem.
And I would just like to mention that.
You saw it when he built up the dance floor, first the dance floor, first the bench, then the dance floor, then the introduction of the pink, and very dramatic. Sorry you missed that.
And so the symbolism he started to talk about is the pink triangular symbolism that would have come in with stacked globe balls. It'd be like disco balls from the dancing to the symbolism there. That would be a separate portion, number one of the three portions: the dance floor, symbolism of the stacked mirror balls, and then the memorial location also.
He was gonna go from, so that marker, the historical marker is to the left of the dance floor, sort of by the highway now. And that pink, and I think he wanted to stress that it's not gonna be like one brilliant Barbie-like shade of pink, right? That is going to be very.
I got 4 daughters. Barbie's okay pink.
That is okay, but I think that's not what Gustavo's after.
Right. So the mosaic, I got that the mosaic is going to break up the color and.
Right, and they're in the shape of mirror balls.
And mimic the reflection properties of a ball, yeah.
And it's very weather resistant material also.
Bringing back, you know, some of the sparkle, some of the glitter of the dance of the mirror balls, right? They're stacked together. That would also continue. He adds that in on the presentation on the inside of the bench. So from the outside, when you're in the park, you're looking at this beautiful traditional stone kind of country bench.
Can we go down one more? And I think that's.
Sorry, I didn't want to go too far.
Stone wall on the exterior
Is there one
facing
at the
out.
interior? I think it's coming up.
I think probably I dimension. Oh, maybe not.
That's the garden top. No, it's up a little bit. Oh, no, it's not enough, sorry.
So the idea was that there would be like a mosaic on the inside
Yeah, there-
reflecting the same kind of color scheme.
Yes. Same sort of mosaic on the pink would continue that you would only see from the dance floor, right? So it's sort of also, reminiscent of the 70s and 80s, getting inside that door looks like this on the outside. When you get inside, there's this happy, joyful play of different types of that pink mosaic.
On this,
On
right,
the
in here,
inside,
yeah.
on the inside of the bench, you can see right in that upper
The red
corner,
right
like just a
here.
tiny bit,
Right there,
tiny bit of that pink, yeah.
The wall's gonna be.
Okay, and then the last slide, if you go down
Yes.
to one more, that's our idea for the memorial path. So the garden-like area shaded, those bricks would be engravable. Aside from it being really important for people to have their names there, loved ones that were lost, it could also be a way to maintain the park, like with the purchase of bricks, that's done all the time in different installations. So I think we could just bring Ken in, he's the historic expert, Ken Lustbader. He is a longtime resident of East Hampton and advisor to Hampton's Design Committee. He's the co-founder and co-director of the New York City LGBT Historic Sites Project. It was launched in 2015, award-winning cultural heritage initiative and educational resource that is documenting and memorializing LGBTQ+ site-based history in New York City. For over 30 years, Ken has been a national leader in issues related to LGBTQ+ history, documentation, and historic preservation. He emailed me. He read the article in the Star and said, "Oh, I'm very interested in this as an historic preservation project." So another great thing that happened from that little guesswork. Ken is now on our design committee. He's one of the leaders in this field. He can explain to you the significance of pink and the significance of the triangle so much better than any of us could. He wrote that letter that you have, so eloquent, masterful, things I've been trying to say for a couple of years, but so much better. So he has just the 3 minutes, 4 minutes of, he's prepared something to say, if we can get Ken in.
I'm here. Thank you. Excuse me. I just confirm that you can hear me and that I'm on screen, so.
Yes, Ken, we can hear you just fine.
And
the
I'm-
slide that's up has.
Yep, I see it here. I'm low tech here. I'm letting you guys advance everything. I'll just stay next, please. And Gustavo, just as a colleague here, has put so much time and energy into this that it's my involvement continues because of his thoughtful and really eloquent and design. But thank you for the opportunity to speak today on this project. As Tom said, I've been a longtime resident of East Hampton, 25 years, and was drawn to it when reading the article in the Star because of my involvement in the past 30 years. Who would have thought I wrote a thesis on this topic in graduate school in historic preservation, and it's now a movement, and it's really wonderful that the town of East Hampton is one of the growing number of communities and municipalities throughout the country that are identifying and memorializing, commemorating their LGBTQ historic narratives through studies and through memorials and the built environment. These local efforts are really trying to range from street markers to walking tours to larger, broader scale type of issues. And the goal of all of them is to recognize an invisible, untold narrative, although vital narrative to each community. So this is just an example of some of the projects around the country. In fact, I just launched in May with a grant from the Mellon Foundation, a national survey to identify who's doing what. And hopefully Tom will complete that survey on behalf of the town of East Hampton. Next, please. Again, Gustavo was talking about the pink triangle, and I'm here today to talk about its exceptionally unique design, that how Gustavo was incorporated into this the location that commemorates the swamp, which operated from 1977 to 2001. It uses the language of the shape of the triangle on the dance floor, as well as on the monument marker on the authentic space that is used. And that's a really important part from a historic preservation project, that it's not just this place is somewhere down the block. This is the site-specific location where this history took place. And the swamp was a place beyond just being a bar. It was really a place that offered a place, a commercial establishment to connect, socialize, celebrate, dance, ultimately becoming a multi-generational meeting hub. Historically, the history of this area coincides with the birth of the LGBTQ, kind of a key turning point to the LGBTQ rights movement that emerged in 1969 after the Stonewall Uprising, which was a big push for visibility, liberation, and rights. In the Hamptons, which had an early 20th century gay history that's fully documented, the visibility of the community emerged with the opening of these type of establishments, and Tom alluded to this Miracle Mile. The swamp was one of those institutions, and these venues were often the only places that allowed people to connect without fear of harassment, surveillance, and danger in the newly emerging period of gay liberation and rights. The difference between what Gustavo has designed and what Tom had envisioned here is that this event and this marker and this project is celebratory. The other markers around the country that I've included here, or around the world, I should say, are more contemplative about loss and using the triangle to convey as a language, loss, persecution, AIDS, and so forth. So that's just a contrast why this is so different and unique. Next, please. So why a triangle and why pink? The project's use of the triangle on the dance floor and the pink triangle for the monument is grounded in LGBTQ history. In the 1930s, the pink triangle was first used as a mark of anti-homosexual persecution in Germany. You can see here, I'm just repeating this, it's intentionally co-opted by the Gay Activists Alliance in 1974 to convey liberation and activism, and now it is used for historic markers, monuments, logos, and it's the ubiquitous language of what gay liberation, gay rights means. Next. And lastly, this is just to show you how widespread it is. It's sort of the nomenclature and language of and why it's important to include it here as a way for people to have a whimsical use through those balls, but also a historically grounded use of what it means and what it was as an LGBTQ plus space. While the tangible presence of the swamp and other LGBTQ venues in the Hamptons are long gone, their memory and significance contributed and continues to elevate the intangible benefits of pride and community. And these elements are reinforced with the design. The town of East Hampton is at the forefront of national efforts to acknowledge the underrepresented history of its LGBTQ community. Celebrating this history through the project will make an invisible history visible. Thank you.
So most of this has been said. I like there's going to be, and our intention is anyway to include interactive virtual components. If you saw in some of the images, there were QR codes that would connect to the history of the site, the history of the attic, say, the other gay-friendly restaurants and bars in the area, people's bios, people who have lived in that spot, music of the area. You're looking at the song titles. You can tune into the music. You can see photos from the era, but also connecting to social platforms where the story continues with the next generation that comes there. They can upload their photos, their experiences, their birthday party there, whatever is going to be happening, meetings with friends. And then just to close with the idea of the town and the village of East Hampton closed its first town on the East End to close its streets for a Pride Parade, and now at the forefront of national efforts to acknowledge these kinds of monuments that are being built all over the place. This is once again leading the pack, right? Making that invisible history visible. So thank you so much to the board. Thanks to Joe Palermo, Scott Wilson, Saska Surveying Company, Wayne-Scott Citizens Advisory Committee, especially Karen Logan Gluck, Sally Sunshine, David Fink, Some of you will understand this, parade leading super ally Dennis DeAndrea, Sarah Davison, Friends of Georgia Pride Foundation. Thank you to the Hamptons Pride Board, which includes Reverend Rob Stewart, Robin Giannis, officer, members of the Hamptons Pride Design Committee, especially Louis Bradbury, Ken Lesbader, and Barbara DeAndrea, Edwina Von Gaal, founder of Perfect Divert Project. Okay. We have these two slides juxtaposed. So here's that view. You don't see the memorial path there, but there's the view looking east. And then on the next slide, just to remind you, zooming in looks huge. That's the space that the construction occupies in the park. Right. And then opening up for questions.
So I just have some comments. The 70, I do not predate me. So recalling those times, I was here, out here in those times, down the street at Le Mans, and very aware of the freedom that was afforded to folks at the Swamp and the Annex and other places that brought people together for dancing. And one of the things that I think is so significant, I think everything that you've chosen is incredibly significant. It's not random. It's not, it really is a historical marker. And the dance floor, people say dance floor, but for me, growing up at that time period, having really close friends who had not come out yet, the dance floor was one of the places where everybody started to come together and nobody cared. I think probably how well you could do the hustle was more important than anyone's sexual identity.
Right.
So I applaud this project and the thoughtfulness that went into it. I think it'll educate, and I think it'll be a remembrance, and I think it's beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Tom,
choreo files.
Yes.
The, consideration and expression of the elements of symbolism within this plan are really exceptional. And I think there's been a great deal of thought about that and how it's laid out. And, art, meets the world through the expression of ideas and feelings and whatnot. That's part of what really makes us all human and connects us together. So I think the way this has been done is really spectacular. I love the celebratory nature of it. And, I'm also looking forward to changing the perception of me being the alleged footloose police and let it be known that I'm really a choreophile.
Thank you.
So I'm a maintenance guy. So, long-term maintenance, I think we've discussed this. The park here is a very quiet park that's been used, justified. The pathway is a multi-user path, so I'm glad that you're incorporating the ADA capacity to be able to use the social gathering space by having that access there, because that was the impetus for the initial design of the park also. The materials that looks like they're going to be used are going to be weather resistance, either from the glass, the stone, to the wood on there. So that's always good for making sure that this potential installation outlasts us that are here for the next generation, or makes it easier for them to want to do this again. So that's great, and the design, Gustavo, for that is good. I would state that as far as the memorial park and the vegetation, we should layer the vegetation onto the street side, obviously, then too, because as you create more attraction in a way, sometimes you want to make sure that the traffic stays away from the park. And that was always initial intent of the management plan, was to put more vegetation in that area. So I hope we can incorporate that into this. The scale of it, saying 2% into where it is, I think we're just sort of lucky on that too. And that the initial design allows for this space to potentially be used in a very selective way that represents the goal. And you've stated what the goal is here too. I think the town has to look at a long-term feasibility of potentially bring electricity down on the pole. That will allow for either potentially connectivity, also wiring. If there, was an H-frame down there, if we do need to put water into the area, or also security then too. the way the park lays out, it actually, this is one of the higher locations. It goes down to the swale, drainage swale in the back. There's some ways I think we have to discuss the way, the permeable pathway here, maintenance of that. I've always been at odds with the type of pathway that's there because of the long-term maintenance, and grass grows into it, and the way that the water swashes to the north, you want to say, or the northwest on there. So I think we will have to address some small little drainage areas in the park as a global approach to this. But I'm supportive of the ideas that you've presented here, and I thank you for listening to the materials, because long-term maintenance makes, if we can effectively look at the long-term maintenance way up front, it would be a better project down the road, long-term too.
Okay, I guess it's my turn.
And I have to say, so I'm late 70s. Where was the attic?
Where was the attic? Just a stone's throw up the road to the east.
Which one?
I'm sorry?
Which lot? What was it? What is it now?
Home goods.
Home goods.
Can't miss it.
Yeah, I didn't know that word. Yeah.
I mean, the question was, making the park more walkable, and it was, people walked back and forth, and, once that sidewalk is in, that will sort of bring that idea back, of people going back and forth between the two establishments.
So I just wanted to say that I just think that the design on so many levels is genius. The shape of the platform, the stone bench that could also be like a bar, the pink disco balls in the shape of the triangle, the music titles, when I was looking through the PowerPoint, when you read them, you sing them. I mean, it's really very neat.
Macho.
I was looking at Got to Be Real.
Yeah.
But I've also thought about, for 10 years, I've been the liaison to the Special Events Committee. So I do know that there are some community members that may be a little bit concerned that this is going to turn into the party pad, and, there's been issues in the past with parking and whatnot. So I just think that, we need to just, I'm supportive of the project, but I think we also need, and we've always permitted, your tea dance and all of that. And I don't see that changing, but I don't think this is where neighbors and people bring their sandwich and people gather. But I think we just have to be, it's a balance, right? With what takes place at this incredible park. I mean, between the shelter that you're putting in for families and things, and this, it's pretty special.
It's a little bit of a cornerstone of that Hamlet study for Wainscott right now. It's the park of Wainscott and all of them then too. And that's why I state that the location of this is, we're fortunate that that's where the dance floor was, but it's also fortunate that we could put that to the side so you still see the vista as you drive by and get a peaceful moment.
Yeah, I'd also like to just say, this park was dedicated to the memory of Rick Del Mastro, and it's wonderful to see you, Cynthia, and Jen here today, his family members. And, Rick was a really special gentleman and really influenced a lot of people. Particularly, he had a very deep and abiding love for Wainscott and everything about Wainscott. And we miss him dearly, and it's really wonderful to see you here today.
So I would just like to add that this is the second time I've seen this presentation. First time was at the Wainscott CAC, and it's the first time I've seen Ken talk about this and put it in the global context. And I am very proud to be able to support a project like this in the town of East Hampton, and almost brings me to tears because it is one of those things where I think, again, East Hampton's, in the forefront of looking at world issues.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken.
Next up, we have the affordable apartments.
Hi, I'm Eric Chance, the Director of Housing. I just want to give you a brief overview and update on what the town, various departments have done regarding residential affordable accessory apartments. ADUs is a very common term that's become more and more popular over the years. Technically in our code, we call them affordable accessory apartments, so don't be fooled by the abbreviation there, but basically what we're talking about are ADUs. And I just want to stress that the ability to build accessory dwelling units or apartments on residential property is an important aspect in tackling the housing crisis in the town. So we're hoping to get more public involvement in the program. And a lot of what you'll see here is intended to do just that. It's to make the program function better and to get more public involvement. So what we're going to go over is code amendments. As the board knows, you recently made some pretty large amendments to the town code to make the program more open and accessible to homeowners. We updated the application process and smoothed it out. We improved administration. I'll get into that, but basically coordination between the town departments so that we can keep track of permitting. And then also we took some steps to improve public information and information out there for the general public, and hopefully information that will help them decide to build an accessory dwelling unit or accessory apartment. So this is just a very brief overview of the recent code amendments. Again, the town board's probably very familiar with this. Planning took the lead on this. I thank Jeremy Samuelson in particular for really going through the process and making the changes to the proposed code amendments and bringing that back in front of this board at numerous work sessions. It was arduous, but I think we got to a place where we've improved the program. So just basically the key points here. Doubled the number of permits that are allowed to be issued. Again, there's a cap on the overall number of accessory apartments permitted in the town. It is now 40 per school district or 200 townwide. We consolidated the code as far as dimensional regulations. Before, to have a apartment within the existing residence, you needed 20,000 square feet, and if you wanted it in a detached structure, you needed 30,000 square feet. We haven't come across issues with the size of the property, so basically to smooth this out and extend the reach of the program, that was consolidated and made more consistent so that you need 20,000 square feet, which is roughly a half acre to be eligible. Basically, there was a limitation where homeowners could only live in the accessory dwelling unit under certain conditions. Basically, the idea here is that if a homeowner does have the primary residence and then builds an accessory apartment, if it's better for their personal needs at the time, they can live in the apartment and rent out the home. That was a part of the existing code, but it was basically some of the restrictions on that were lifted. Mainly, there was a limitation on the number of those per school district. And then also to accommodate the seasonal workforce, before all tenants of the rental unit had to be current residents. Of course, how do you be, if you work in the town and you're not a current resident, how do you get housing in the town if you're not a current resident? It created this catch-22. We want to facilitate seasonal workers. They're an important part of the community and give them a place to live. So that was changed. Along those lines also was seasonal rental being prohibited. We've now made it where that is permitted, but under certain circumstances. We clarified and expanded the number of bedrooms. It didn't make sense to limit it to 1 bedroom per unit. Really, the issue is the maximum occupancy of it. So you are allowed now to do 2 bedrooms, which is also what you're allowed to do with a commercial apartment. And then the final major change was upping the amount of rent that can be charged. Previously, it was 110% of fair market rent as designated by HUD for the area. We upped that to 130%. That helps the homeowner be able to get more money from renting this out while still keeping the rent within an affordable range for a tenant. So also the second thing that we've been doing is the application process. namely the application form. What we did was we went and consolidated the application forms. Not a major point, but before we used to have two application forms, one for the landlord, one for the tenant, that would be filled out separately. I think the idea there was to sort of to avoid the landlord having undue sway over the tenant. But what we found that really wasn't a concern, and as long as we know that the tenant is aware of the lease terms, which they must be, they have to sign a copy of the lease, it's required information. It really makes sense to have one consolidated application form that goes to the landlord. They basically fill out the basic information, then give that to the tenant fills it out. And both the tenant and landlord need to provide us with some basic information. Most of that hasn't changed, but hopefully we streamline that process. And by having a new application form, hopefully that takes some of the confusion away, because we want homeowners to be able to take advantage of this program, and we want to see accessory dwelling units. So we want to make the application process as easy as possible for the general public. So you can see some of the required information there. We must have a copy of the lease agreement, make sure that it checks out with everything that is legal and the landlord can require of a tenant. We still require photo IDs. The code is worded that the landlord has to have have the physical residence or physical apartment, but regardless, that property be their primary legal residence. The main way that we ensure that is through reviewing W-2s, making sure that federal taxes are filed at that address. And then perhaps most importantly, we made sure that the updated application form is available online. And it's very clear on the website as to how to submit that and get that process going. So one of the big things here, though, was the administration, the actual processing and running of the program internally. We've improved communication between my department, which is the Office of Housing and Community Development, and the Building Department, which are the two main town departments that oversee this program, but also planning and the Office of Fire Prevention. Obviously, the fire marshal can and does come into this process of inspecting a living unit. The main thing we've done here is we created a tracking spreadsheet. Both building and housing had similar documents before, but we basically coordinated between the two departments where we're both able to go in and edit it and update information. And really besides the obvious, although I guess these are part of the obvious things of why that's a good thing, and make sure that the maximum number of available permits will not be exceeded. Again, there is a hard cap per school district and for the town as a whole. We can assign ADU permit numbers. That way, all departments are reviewing a permit that is related to that accessory apartment. And basically, multiple departments can access that tracking sheet. So if planning, if there's a architectural review board application that involves a property and it has an accessory dwelling unit, they can look at that sheet, they can see the status of that permit. They can reference that and check that on a property. There may not be issues related to the accessory apartment that would affect such an application, but there might be, and more information is always a good thing. So basically, it also helps with the timing of the different aspects of the program. I'll go into that a little bit in a second, but there's a process that an applicant must follow of applying for a building permit, filling out an application form to the building department and supplying information to them, completing the project, and then getting a temporary CO, and then contacting my office to get a permit from Housing and Community Development. So really during this permitting process, there are two specific permits that a homeowner must obtain, and they're from building and from housing. So basically, we also agreed with the building department that we'll be sort of assigning these permits or holding them for applicants in the order that the application is received. Again, since the town board thankfully upped the number of permitted apartments per school district from 20 to 40. We're no longer at the cap in one of those school districts. East Hampton School District was at the cap of 20. So that sort of begged the question of, well, when we get near the cap again, if there are two, do we assign a permit when we get to that hard cap and not assign a permit because we're at the cap? based on the order the application was received, the order they got a CO, we basically agreed that the prudent thing to do would be when a complete application is received, that a permit is basically reserved for that individual. But again, with this process and this program, that might be something that's changed, but for now, just wanted to let the public know that. So it is a good idea to get your application in as soon as possible if you are thinking of adding an accessory apartment. And then also, permits need to be renewed annually or when a new tenant goes into an apartment. That's not a change, but hopefully the improved application process smooths out the process, not smooths it. So sorry for that error, but that's where we were going with that. So I would encourage anyone listening in the audience or on TV to go to the town's website. We completely updated My Department, the Housing Department's webpage. Gives up-to-date and current information about all the programs and functions of My Department. But you will see in there's a specific page to affordable accessory apartments. There is one for commercial, one for residential. Today, we're really talking about the residential side of things. But you'll see that hopefully all of the basic information that an individual would need is on the website. So we'd encourage everybody to look at that. But included in there is a description of what ADUs are, an overview of the application process, which I won't go into the specific details unless there are questions about it. But then also frequently asked questions. Who's eligible? What's the maximum rent that can be charged? We posted that. We literally gave the figures for this year. They will be updated soon by HUD. What's the maximum size apartment you can have, dimensional regulations, site requirements, and sanitary upgrades. So the address of the website is at the bottom there, but perhaps the easiest thing to do is just go to the town's main page. Up on the top tab, you'll see it with the cursor there. Thank you, Ann. Under government, there's a drop-down menu. If you go to Office of Housing and Community Development, you'll see it as a link right there on the left-hand side. So basically, that's what we've been doing. We're trying to expand the reach of the program. So really, for reaching out to homeowners out there that might be considering building an accessory apartment, which we would like them to do, the more affordable housing stock we can get, the better. How to apply, contact my department, the Office of Housing and Community Development, and the building department. Again, going through this process will require applications to both departments. We've tried to smooth the process out as much as possible. Obviously, with any property, there are unforeseen issues, but Housing and Building will try to make this process as smooth as possible. But really for a homeowner, you need to decide first what you're going to do. Are you going to build an apartment that's within the existing residence? You're just going to convert an interior space? Are you going to build a separate structure? If, for both of these situations, it might be in addition to the existing structure. Where is it going to be located? You really need to, it doesn't hurt to reach out to our departments first to get more information about the process, but really to initiate the process, you kind of have to settle on a project. From there, you can prepare the necessary building plans and apply for a building permit. After you go through the process, complete the construction, and basically the building department will issue a temporary CO waiting for a permit from my department. That's when you go out and find somebody to occupy the accessory apartment. We do not have a list that homeowners have to draw from. They can rent that space out to anybody in the town that they wish to. That individual and their family just has to income qualify. So basically after that, you finalize the permit with the building department, and then application to my department. And again, it's a one-page application form. We just want to know who the landlord is, who the tenant is, make sure that they income qualify, and that closes out the process. So, but looking to the future, so now we have this program. We've had it for a while. It's been part of the code. We updated the town code. We updated some of the internal processes and application forms to try and smooth out the existing program. But one of the big questions then, and obviously for everybody out here when you're building anything, is the cost of building something. So what we want to do to make the program even more reachable and workable for people is to provide financial assistance. At this point, the only, well, I guess there isn't anything set up for direct financial assistance for affordable accessory apartments at this time. However, beginning in January, this is a tentative date, but as the board knows, and hopefully the community knows, we recently approved the Community Housing Fund. So in January of next year, a few months away, we hope to open up a grant and loan window for the Community Housing Advisory Board to review requests from the Housing Fund for financial assistance for a myriad of different projects. Anything really that is permitted under the Community Housing Fund law to provide funding for is something that will be considered. This is the first year, this is the first go-round of that committee and this fund reviewing requests. So we're trying to smooth out that process with that committee as much as possible. But obviously with any program, there's a learning curve and you have to evolve and adjust it as things go by. So I want to say there's no guarantee that there's going to be money directly available for the building of affordable accessory apartments. However, it is a project that is an approved use of that fund. So it is something that people can apply to the town for. And my department and the CHAB, the Community Housing Advisory Board, will be providing more information to the public pretty soon as to what that process is, what information is required. We'll have that both available online, and I expect that a request for applications is also going to be put out in the coming months, so that'll be back in front of the town board. Ultimately, I would like to see a portion of the Community Housing Fund reserved for a specific sub-program to provide financial assistance for accessory dwelling units or affordable accessory apartments. Again, that's not something that's set up yet. I would see this, though, being a mostly administrative application process where, provided you meet certain criteria, you'd be eligible for X number of dollars to aid you in building an accessory dwelling unit. And I'm looking to model this off of the septic rebate program. This came up previously with a public comment, but the CPF, the portion of the CPF that is for water quality projects, there's a water quality technical advisory committee that reviews most of the larger scale grant and loan requests. But then there's also a more administrative sub-program that is for individual homeowners to upgrade their sanitary system. So I see both a sub-program for financial assistance for accessory dwelling units and also one for direct financial assistance to first-time home buyers being much in that mold. But again, that's something that doesn't exist currently. It's something that we're working on, and we hope to have available to the public and to homeowners as soon as possible. So one thing, and this is the subject of the next presentation that you'll hear, is the +1 ADU program. That is a grant that was put out last year from New York State, from HCR, Homes and Community Renewal, that is for a homeowner to assist them in building an accessory dwelling unit. Most of the details focus on the income qualification of that homeowner. In other words, a lot of it is centered around helping a homeowner have a new means of providing income by creating one of these apartments and charging rent. And with the happy side effect of that being that it also provides housing for the community. So I shouldn't call them Community Development Corporation, CDC Long Island, CD Long Island, but you'll hear that in a bit from Glenn O'Shea, who's the president of that. They have administered this grant program for Babylon, Southampton, and Shelter Island. I spoke directly with Cara Bach from Southampton, and they have had this available to members of the public for the past year. She had nothing but good things to say about the process and their experience with it. So it's something that I think that the town board should explore. Again, Glenn O'Shea is going to give you more details on that right after I'm done here. But it's something that would not be in place of something that was set up through the Community Housing Fund and using that money to help aid the construction of affordable accessory apartments. It's something that's out there already. It's an alternative funding source that's available to homeowners that qualify. So and given the good experiences of other municipalities with it, it's something that I think that we should venture into to provide an option for funding for construction of apartments as soon as possible. But with that, I'll answer any questions that you may have, and then more information about that program will be provided.
Thank you, Eric. Any questions for Eric or comments?
I think it's just a great overview of what's happened, and continue the outreach to the residents that might want to take advantage of this to assist with the need for affordable housing within the town of East Hampton. So I look forward to seeing you again in a couple of months. We'll do the same thing.
I really appreciate the work you did on the website as well, and certainly when you talk about having departments coordinating, so everybody knows what everybody's doing, that's a very important aspect to all of this.
Yeah, I think when we took a look at in anticipation for this community housing fund coming online, when we took a look at our current accessory affordable apartment legislation, we realized not only was there not a great deal of participation after many years having it in place, but we took a deep dive into why, and that resulted in a lot of, I think, changes and adjustments that the board agreed to help facilitate this effort going forward. And I'll add to Kate's comment that revamping and reorganizing the housing department is crucial, and I think you're off to a great start, Eric. We're very happy with your work as the new director of housing at a time when we're going to have these new funds coming in. And I know that it will take a little bit of time to set up a process and decisions about how the money gets distributed are important discussions that will still need to take place, and whether or not we will have loan programs or have any kind of grant program. I mean, my own personal feeling about the grants is that we should avoid those, that you could make those loans that are either no interest, but at the time of sale of house, that those monies would go back into the system, so we have this revolving source that builds over time. I think that's a better way than just handing out the money one time only and not seeing it again. But those are all discussions and processes that will have to be determined going forward. Again, thank you very much. Sure. And anyone else have any comments before we move on? Well, I'm happy to welcome Gwen O'Shea from Community Development, Long Island, and to talk about the +1 ADU, New York State. Welcome, Gwen.
Thank you. Thank you so much for, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for letting me have the opportunity to talk with you all today about some of the work that CDLI is doing. I appreciate, Eric, thank you so much for connecting with us and having the opportunity to talk about this, because it really is a great opportunity as we think about creating new housing for individuals. So just a little bit of background. I will be focusing today primarily on the +1 ADU program. And part of the reason that we're working on this program, we can move forward to the next slide, thank you so much, it's really at the core of what we do as an organization. So Community Development Long Island, we've recently dropped the corporation. As you can imagine, during the pandemic as CDC, there was a lot of confusion about what we could do related to vaccines and other sort of responses to the COVID pandemic. So we've rebranded to minimize that confusion. So we're Community Development Long Island, but have been serving the region, Suffolk, Nassau, Brooklyn, and Queens for close to 55 years now, really looking at all things home. And we're very proud of the fact that we are recognized as an exemplary organization by NeighborWorks America, a national entity that really looks at the governance and the fiduciary role an organization plays in managing its funds. Our mission is to provide home in a variety of different ways, is to support individuals, families, and communities in ensuring that everyone has a stable home, however they define that. And we really do this through a variety of business lines. We have a very robust rental assistance program, very robust home improvement optimization program where we work with homeowners, rehabbing existing properties, zombie homes, and reselling. That department works very closely with our homeownership center, where we do a lot of work in educating individuals on financial health and opportunities, as well as becoming a home buyer and providing support around closing on that transaction. And then we have a pretty robust housing development and planning department. We own close to 1,600 units of affordable housing, single-family scattered sites, but also multifamily from Western Nassau County all the way out to the North Fork on the East End. And we have a community development financial institution. Both of those two departments are really critical to the conversation today. As a community development financial institution, we are able to lend and fill niches and gaps within communities where they are either under-resourced or under-resourced to really ensure individuals, whether it's a small business, a home buyer, or an individual looking to access funds, again, to create a stable home for themselves, they're able to do that. So about the ADU, and I'm sorry for all the acronyms, I'm going to try not to use any part of the job, right? But accessory dwelling units are secondary housing units that are built on single-family lots, as Eric was talking about. It's really a fantastic opportunity. While no, it doesn't bring in 300, 500, 1,000 new units to a community, it does really respond in a way that meets the facade and the feel, recognizing how unique all of our communities here on Long Island. It really maintains that look and feel of a community while providing support to not just the home buyer, but also to the community as a whole by creating additional rental units. As Eric mentioned, we're really pleased to be working with the town of Babylon, Shelter Island, and Southampton on the accessory dwelling unit program. This is a program, as Eric mentioned, that is funded through the state office. It was in the capital budget in 2022. Significant millions of dollars were put and set aside for municipalities throughout New York State that were interested. It's not a forced program by any means. It's a program that is really targeted for municipalities that have existing accessory dwelling unit codes on the books already. And the idea, recognizing the critical need we have to develop more housing across the state and in particular on Long Island, this was a great way to start expediting getting funds out for communities that were willing and interested in moving forward with that. So as we mentioned, the great thing about this program, it really wants to match what a municipality is looking for in terms of development and allowing for in terms of their code. So these funds allow a homeowner who's interested in participating in the program, if town code allows, to either make some rehab adjustments to the existing single-family structure and create an accessory dwelling unit within that structure, or create a separate standalone accessory dwelling unit, again, if that property and that parcel meets the requirements that the town may have to allow for either of those opportunities to take place. And so this program is really targeted, recognizing how many individuals here on Long Island, when we look at the high cost of living and how expensive it is for many of our community members who may be long-standing community members, long-standing homeowners, are dealing with financial constraints. This program is targeted at those that are feeling that financial constraint. And it does provide up to $125,000 of funds to create an accessory dwelling unit. This does include the cost of having CDLI help to administer the program, work with the homeowner in creating designs, again, reviewing and making sure that that parcel meets code and meets the requirements of the municipality. We work very closely with the appropriate departments and agencies throughout all the different municipalities that we're working with. But we do recognize that, in particular, if you're looking to create a standalone accessory dwelling unit, when we look at some of the septic issues that we know homeowners are dealing with that are looking to create this new property on their parcel, that there may need to be additional funds beyond the $125,000 that are available through the program. And so just to give you a sense who the program is targeting, again, there is a income cap for individuals that receive the grant funds. So that's up to 100% of the area median income. Thinking about an individual, single individual that is a homeowner, that would be roughly $103,000 of earned income annually. That goes up incrementally, obviously, as the family size increases. But again, the program is really meant for those that may not have access to other funds, and by creating this additional accessory dwelling unit, not only puts new units online, but does provide some additional financial support for that homeowner to really be able to take care of their financial needs. There are additional requirements for the program. Again, the intention of these funds is to create new permanent units, put new units online. So there is a requirement both of the homeowner and then of the renter. You are allowed, the homeowner is allowed to live in the accessory dwelling unit if they decide to. We've spoken to a number of people throughout the different municipalities that we're working with that are saying, you know what, this is a great opportunity for me. I don't need the 3 bedrooms, the 4 bedrooms any longer. I love the idea of having having a new family, maybe move into my home, living in the accessory dwelling unit, myself, and sort of downsizing, getting that additional financial support that would be very, very meaningful to me. So the homeowner can live in either part, the home itself or the accessory dwelling unit, but it does have to be their year-long residence. They have to spend the majority of the time there. There is requirements to document that. And there is a requirement that the renter themselves, it is their permanent home. So the idea is not to create new additional Airbnbs or weekend rentals. The funds are intended to put new units online to help support not just homeowners, but also the community economic development aspect as well, helping to support workforce and other individuals that are critical to the community. The homeowner also has a 10-year compliance period that they have to adhere to. So that means that they would be renting that unit, meeting the requirements, as Eric was talking about, some of the requirements that you all have related to the annual rent that could be charged. We would adhere to whatever rules you had on the books in terms of reviewing that for the individual that might be renting that unit, but it does need to be rented for at least 10 years, and that we would be doing compliance check-ins annually to make sure there is a lease in place. We've talked with many individuals who are really interested about the fact they may have a child that is differently abled, and the child would like to live independently as they move into adult years. They can certainly use that property for that, as long as, again, it's the permanent residency. They don't have to charge rent. It's not required that rent is charged, but there does have to be a lease in place to, again, demonstrate that it's a year-long residency. What we've done in working with the municipalities, because we do recognize the differences in all of the different codes that are on the books, is put together some design guidelines so that homeowners can have a better understanding of what is allowable. We're really trying to stay away from any applicants that might need a variance, because the idea is really to start getting units online as quickly as possible. So having these design guidelines, for example, in Babylon, where you are not allowed to have a standalone accessory dwelling unit, we provide, the guidance so that individuals are clear on what may be allowable based on the parcel that they own. To give you just a snapshot of how things are moving along, there has been a tremendous amount of interest in the program. You may be saying, wow, we haven't seen any publication or media or marketing around the program. We did not do a lot, to be honest with you, because there was such great interest initially. So as Eric mentioned, while we've been working with the town of Southampton for about a year now, when we put in the initial application towards the tail end of 2022, the application has actually only been up and live since July. So it's a very small window of time. We've gotten 200 applicants across the board. In Southampton, we have close to 70 applicants that are approved. Shelter Island, 20 applicants that are approved, and Babylon, 85 applicants that are approved. The initial awards from the state are $2 million. So we anticipate going back to the state and asking for additional funds in all three of those municipalities, because there is such interest. As well, I know, Supervisor, you were mentioning the differences between grants and loans. One thing we've talked with the town of Southampton about is using some of their additional community housing funds to go over the area median income, so to help those that are up to about 130% of the AMI access funds to create accessory dwelling unit, but to use their funds to have a loan. And because we are a community development financial institution, we actually can receive and manage those funds, so it is a revolving loan fund that does allow then for those dollars to put new units online as those funds get paid back, and homeowners can pick between anywhere from a 5 to a 10-year loan period. Obviously, a smaller window of time, higher monthly payment, but overall, when you look at the average monthly payments for what might be necessary, it's much less than what a homeowner is bringing in from a rental perspective. So there'll be really no out-of-pocket cost for the individual that might be utilizing a loan. So right now, things are moving along. What we're going through is design reviews with homeowners, again, getting a sense of what a homeowner is looking for, talking with building departments and the town to make sure all the homeowners, their property, there aren't any outstanding permit issues, that they're up to code requirements for all aspects of their own home. We're going through the financial review. Some homeowners have been very clear. I don't want to put anything out of pocket. I want to be able to develop with the $125,000 that are there. So let's put together some design guidelines that can fall within that price point. And homeowners we've talked with a lot of homeowners, some that want to lead on the construction themselves, maybe working with local contractors, interested in bringing in local contractors. It's our intention to work with as many local contractors with throughout all municipalities as possible. But in some instances, we'll lead for a homeowner on the construction process if for whatever reason they would prefer to have someone really helping them and assisting that gets over the finish line in an expedited way. And so for homeowners that might be listening to this presentation that are interested, we have everything online on our website. We did create an online application, so it's super streamlined for homeowners. We have a great team of individuals that are really versed in the process, talking with homeowners about what they may need, making sure, as we said, we can get these developments over the finish line, but would welcome the opportunity to talk further with you all if it was of interest to the town to look at these funds. Again, these are additional state funds. It's a pretty straightforward application process and a great way to complement anything that you may be doing or considering as you think about creating more units for your residents here in the town of East Hampton. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Gwen. I just had a couple quick questions on it. You touched on it briefly. The funding is in the form of grants or loans?
It is in the form of a grant. It's a forgivable loan to a homeowner. So they, as I mentioned, there's a 10-year compliance period. During that time frame, our organization will be checking with the homeowner to make sure that there is a lease in place, that it is a permanent residency for someone. We got a call from a town saying we think this is being rented out, on a weekend basis. We would certainly inquire with the homeowner about that. If for whatever reason the homeowner either doesn't want to use that unit any longer as an accessory dwelling unit, is selling, moving out of town, they can have an option of either paying back whatever is remaining. The $125,000 would be prorated over that 10-year period. They could pay it back, or if there was a new home buyer coming in, they could sign to continue with that compliance period and still make sure that that was a unit that was available online.
Okay, so that grant is amortized over the course of that 10 years. So let's just say it was a $100,000 grant. So if after 5 years I wanted to sell the property and not continue, the new owner didn't want to continue, then I would repay $50,000. Is that correct?
That's correct, and we actually will be filing, we file within the towns a covenant lien on the property so that it's clear that that property has accessed these funds.
Understood. Right. Any other questions for Gwen?
No, I'm happy to see that there's a partner out there that can benefit the needs of the town of East Hampton right now within the CDLI.
Well done, thank you. And we look forward, as another opportunity there is perhaps the individual that was renting could become a homeowner, right? And working with our team, getting individuals prepared for what does homeownership look like, making sure you can access additional funds for down payment assistance. So we think there's a lot of great ways that accessing these funds through the state can be of benefit to the residents of East Hampton.
Yeah, well, and it's the same pot of money that anyone from Plattsburgh to Buffalo to Montauk Point is going to be looking after. So why can't we get some of that money from that pot? And I want to thank Eric for bringing this forward to work with you. And I look forward to continuing the conversation because I do see benefit that we can use long-term here in the town.
Terrific.
Honestly.
We welcome that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
That brings us up to emergency communications upgrade status update, and we have our communications expert, Eddie Schnell, with us here today. Eddie, welcome. Good afternoon.
Hi, Eddie.
So,
Sorry.
go to the next one. Some background, 2017, we kicked this off. The radio system is in place, needed to be fully replaced, forklift upgrade as it's called. Original sites, Montauk, Amagansett, here at Town Hall, Wayne Scott by the airport, and the Noyak Tower, in Southampton. Those have all been up, running, operational for 2 years now, year and a half, 2 years. Now we're going forward, we bonded $11.1 million to this date for that project. Systems used by every law enforcement and public safety agency from Montauk to Sag Harbor, as well as a whole bunch of random town departments, code enforcement, animal control, airport, all over the place. All right. Since the last update, which was in 2021, the Gator site on East Lake Drive is now fully operational. The new tower at the dump in Montauk is fully operational with the exception of the one microwave link back here. And we've also put a temporary site in on Gann Road to cover until the permanent site at the Girl Scout camp could be completed. The tower here at Town Hall is being extended 20 feet. That bid should be hopefully approving on Thursday. Finally got everything back on that. That ended up being $156,000 and change. So the reason for that is the original design for the Montauk Tower to accommodate the microwave path back to here had a taller height at 300 feet. the FAA, there's an IFR route that goes over the dump, so we couldn't exceed 194. So then we have to fix the other side, which we didn't want to do because there's a lot of stuff to move around in this tower. So the Gator site out in Montauk is a oblique picture of it, and that's two 85-foot steel monopoles. This was a joint project with Suffolk County Police Department. How it ended up working was the county bought the two poles, we bought the building, they paid all or most of the labor. Operational June 2022 provides a lot of coverage out into the docks, which was a very historic bad spot for the system, and also covers pretty well out to the lighthouse under the rocks out front. I think that's, yeah. The Gann Road ASR, that's a trailer tower. Suffolk County was nice enough to loan us their tower for a very long period of time. The town owns the actual radio equipment, which is at the base of it, and kind of filling the gap until Camp Blue Bay can come online. Next one. The picture of the new Montauk.
Just explain what trunk is.
Trunk. So trunk radio, instead of having every agency having their own radio system, you have one for East Hampton Town Police, one for East Hampton Village, Montauk, Amagansett, Springs Fire Departments, you're up to 5 already. Each one of them would need space in a tower, an antenna on the tower, equipment at the base of the tower. And it would only be used when that one agency is doing something. So a lot of the time it would sit there useless, doing nothing. So with the trunk radio system, we have 7 channels that are at all the sites. And as users need the system, it assigns them one of those 7 channels at random with what's available. So obviously there's a pecking order. The animal control can't kick the fire department off, but the chief of police can kick the fire department off. There's a predefined hierarchy.
Yeah, thank you.
So the new Montauk Tower is complete. It's currently, the steel's 180 feet, and then the antennas stick above the top to 194. We're at the limit. The tower itself is designed in the future, if it ever becomes possible, to go to 300 feet, and it's designed to withstand 141 mile an hour wind speeds at that full 300-foot height, fully loaded. Obviously, we already talked about the last microwave link back to Town Hall. We're currently using the old one on the old tower. So now, that's where we are. Going forward, which we've already touched on in the past, what the plan forward is to complete the system and add the last 2 sites. The next one. So this is our proposed coverage with all 8 sites operational. The new ones are where that black dot is. That's the northwest brush dump, and then obviously Camp Blue Bay there, covering all the springs.
Oh, sorry.
Now you're going to go to the next one. So northwest brush dump, 185-foot monopole. It's been there a couple of years now. AT&T is operational on it. We have the top 25 feet as part of the settlement agreement, how that tower got built. We're basically putting a shelter and a generator and a propane tank at the bottom and putting in our antennas at the top. The next one. It's just a brush dump picture of it, really washed out. And that's the coverage that just that one site provides. So it is a pretty good coverage generator and gives some nice overlap from
Can
Wayne's.
you just go back to that 1 second? Yeah. So in the black, so that's emitting, so the black areas on the Acabana Cliffs over there show there where there's higher ground, and the black areas where there's no service. So hence, if we went from Montauk back towards East Hampton here, based on the topography, there's not a line of sight to some of these locations, and that's why you're building redundancy into the system.
Yeah, East Hampton and Montauk specifically has some very unique geography, being a glacial deposit. It really throws the microwave engineers for a curveball. And they're like, that's not possible. And it's like, well, it's there, go look at it.
Thank you.
So Springs plans to co-locate on the newly built 185-foot monopole at Camp Blue Bay. Same deal as Northwest, shelter, generator, propane tank on the base, and we have the top 25 feet of that tower as well. There's a lease agreement already in place for that. That's aerial of the new tower. They didn't have an oblique yet. And that's the coverage. That's actually the coverage from Crandall. I don't have the software license for this anymore, but they're so close together, it's pretty much identical. So backhaul, tying it all together, none of this stuff works if you just throw it up and it can't talk to the equipment that's here at Town Hall, because that's what runs the show. So we use private microwave, which is extremely reliable. And what that's doing is sending data in either the 611 or 18 gigahertz bands between each site. We have what's called a ring design, so that if there's a problem with one of the links, which doesn't happen often, but does happen and always happens at the worst time, every site has a different way to connect and keep the actual radio system that the users see fully operational. These connections are very much line of sight. If the trees grow into the path, it's useless. Usually when people ask, well, can't that tower be, 50 feet shorter? This is microwave backhaul is usually what's setting the actual height of the tower, not the actual radio coverage. So Springs at Camp Blue Bay, it's only about 40 feet elevation. And Gator Site has some good elevation, but is blocked by the hill that Montauk Manor and the water tank is on. And the towers are only 85 feet by FAA restrictions. Have been very hard to find second paths out of. So Gator right now only has the one back to Montauk. So if the tower at the Montauk dump, let's say, has a fire in it, you lose both because there's nothing to go the other way. So we were looking at options to get out of Gator Site. The number one option was Plum Island, but nobody knows what's going to happen to Plum Island in 3 years, so that was out. We also looked at the Flamingo water tank. We spoke with the Water Authority, and they were on board with it, but they have a lot of site-specific requirements. We use propane generators. They don't allow propane because it's explosive, so you have to use diesel. And their insurance requirements is pretty much only one guy who can actually do the work on the tower, and it's the guy that paints the towers. I don't really trust him to be doing sub-degree alignments of microwave dishes. So we were looking at other options, and Shelter Island became available, and that's the way we went. So there's an existing 190-foot lattice tower at the Shelter Island dump, landfill, whatever they call it. This isn't a full site for us. It's just the microwave comes in, the microwave goes out. We're not providing radio coverage to Shelter Island. It's just a hop-off point. It still requires, obviously, a storm-hardened installation. We're going to be putting a metal cabinet that's air-conditioned at the base of the tower instead of a concrete building, and it'll still have a generator so that it can keep running for at least a week until the ferry starts running again. We've also been in contact with Shelter Island. They've had some ideas for coming south that are always stopped by the fact that there's nothing that they can ride on. There's also an existing link from Southampton Town who uses that site as a receive site back to Noyax. So it's an additional layer of redundancy.
So ride on, I mean a system they can ride on, not a ferry they can ride on.
A system, yeah. So this is a pictorial because I'm a visual guy, but the red is what's existing today, and then the green is what's being added by this proposal. So it's going from here at Town Hall to the Northwest Brush Dump to Camp Blue Bay to Shelter Island out to Gator to complete pretty much a second ring within the ring. What's not shown on here is the existing Shelter Island at Noyak, which would just add extra bonus to this. This one. Next steps for this is to complete an environmental secret review. Jeremy's got it in progress. Hopefully have that to you today. Need to bond an additional $5 million to cover the cost of the Motorola proposal at $4.8 million. And Motorola believes that we can get them the purchase order before the end of the year. If they rush, they can have this on for Memorial Day of 2024. So that's why we're kind of trying to get this all in front of you and figured out while we can.
So with that 4.8, that's going to be installation, generator, sheds, shelters,
generators, propane. The town's doing the propane, but that's covered in that difference between the 4.8 million and the But yeah, it's turnkey. We believe this time around, we've got everything in the proposal, so that there won't be any change orders like the last time, which adds years of delay. That's why this proposal is taking so long to get, is they keep sending one over and we keep sending it back, saying wrong, 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 until they finally got it right.
So I understand that some of the aspects, like the shelters themselves, have to meet Motorola specs, and therefore, because their equipment is going to be in them and has to be guaranteed, there's cooling, there's
Yes.
generators,
Air conditioning, battery backups, the whole 9 yards, fire suppression. It's the shelters are probably the longest lead time item. They typically quote about 6 months from when they have a PO cut internally to when they're ready to ship.
Is there any other questions for Eddie?
No, my main thing is redundancy is good.
Yeah.
You know, in this case here, not always in government, but here when emergency communications, if something goes down for whatever that cause might be, we want to make sure that we can still keep up with our emergency communications on it then too. As far as cost growing, so trees, a lot of people don't recognize you can go to Hawk's Nest and there's homes there can see Connecticut from their patios. On there, there's a big ridge there that you don't have that line of sight. So sometimes you might have to go outside your municipality. Unfortunately, we're not building towers on Gardiner's Island. That might have solved a lot of this, but that's never gonna happen.
We actually looked at Gardiner's Island. They were.
That's never gonna happen.
No, they were okay with it, but it needed a small dish, and small dishes aren't allowed.
Yeah. So
we looked at everything. We looked at everything.
Yes.
Yeah, I know that from when the system upgrade was first proposed, due to the aging system that we had, that a number of these sites weren't originally contemplated. And I know that there had long been communication shadow, if you will, out in Montauk, and that we had this opportunity with Gator site, but caught up in bureaucracy and
20 years.
20 years. I'm very pleased that we were able to, and during this administration, to finally get that online. And so that's part of the additional cost, was that, as you know, as the board well knows, communications in Springs particularly has been an issue for wireless, and adding an additional site there for redundancy and coverage for emergency services was also equally important. And so I think we made quite a bit of progress, but with these additional sites, the brush dump, Gator site, Springs, whatever, there's obviously additional costs. And so I fully support completing the system with these additional sites, and look forward to moving on.
I do as well, and, when you hear words like emergency communications, what we're really talking about is life and death, and the ability to protect life. So I think it's money well spent, and redundancy is critical.
We're going to have the resolution on to bond on Thursday. Is that the plan? Great.
There'll be a resolution for the seeker, a resolution for the bond, a resolution to accept this proposal, and maybe one other one I'm forgetting. So. The resolution for the Panago Tower extension.
Right. Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you very much, Eddie. We appreciate all your work on this. That brings us up to our last topic today. This afternoon, we've had requests from the Amagansett Life Saving Station Museum about.
If you don't mind, just prior to this, since I'm a trustee of the Amagansett Life Saving Coast Guard Station, I'll just recuse myself from the discussion. I'll sit here quietly.
Okay. The council member, Lisa, is recusing himself from this discussion as a trustee, but the requests come in particularly from docents at the station who have been confronted with out-of-town visitors who, after parking at the museum and enjoying the museum, go out to find that they've been ticketed because the code currently has that area as beach stickered parking only. So that whole side of Atlantic Avenue down to the beach is for resident parking or beach resident or non-resident parking stickers. And I think the fine is something like $130. So there have been folks who've been very upset. There is no provision for parking there for museum patrons currently. So the suggestion is to designate the spaces that you see on the map as museum parking only. It's not a huge number of spaces, but it's certainly the adequate number of spaces for people to go and enjoy the museum. The museum is on the National Historic Register. So again, we're very lucky to have so many historic structures, but it's very unwelcoming to have people come here to see this great history and then get dinged with a fine. So it's something that I think we should correct, and I hope I have the board's support with that parking layout and the designation of museum parking only. There's a discussion.
So I had sent an email back because I just was questioning, if I'm, a non-resident, I come down to the beach and I see this parking spot and I pull in, then I don't have to pay $50 to park, or on the weekends, I can't even pay $50 to park. So how does that work?
So the suggestion was that it be timed parking, 1 hour, museum parking only 1 hour. And therefore, you won't have that issue. People are going to go to the.
So we're going to mark the
There'll be
traffic,
signs designating
traffic
that.
control officers will be like marking tires just to make sure that.
Yeah, they're down there writing tickets now. They can just observe. Plus, the docents are also monitoring those spaces as well. So we think that this is something that should be.
Does it need new parking legislation in order to create it?
I believe we probably do have to.
And then do we have to update with the tabs for the adjudication bureau? Because that's is it a new category then? Yeah. No, I'm generally supportive of it. I just, it's the details.
There's always, repercussions of making any changes. And so to think about what the implications are that are welcome. So that purpose of discussion today, so we can sort of sound that out and, come to a conclusion as to how best to address that issue. So in terms of the actual signage, that's open to discussion. Museum parking only 1 hour. That seemed to be the initial proposal to deal with that issue. So that we don't have people just taking up all the museum parking from out of town so that they can enjoy our beaches without having a permit.
I support, it's such an important, again, like we were talking about before, the Amagansett Life-Saving Station is an incredibly important part of our history, and to dedicate a few parking spots to it is the least we can do.
Yeah, I know, I'm supportive of it, just.
All right, great. So we'll follow up with that with, I guess we have to have a public hearing.
No, Sylvia.
Schedule that. Sylvia, do you have any comments or?
No, I'm supportive of it. Thank you. And feel that there are some, guardrails that need to be in place, as Kathy suggested, and as you suggested, Peter.
Great. So we'll have a resolution to notice a public hearing to change that. And then we'll move on forward. And that's it for the agenda items today. We now have some liaison reports. We have Michael Chinque here from the Amagansett Life-Saving Station.
Thank you, Board, for considering more spaces as we grow and as we build more docents. The doors are open more, and we do get quite a few visitors. Most of them are searching out history and their past histories and all. So it is an older clientele we have. So those spaces would sure come in handy. And well, thank you. And thank you for all you have done, you guys, that are leaving the board. Sylvia, we have free time. Peter, if you want to come down, we need docents. It's one of your babies too,
Thank you.
Town. We're welcome to more docents. The more we open the doors, we promise we won't take any more parking spaces. Thank you all for all you've done for us.
Thank you.
And by the way, after the first of the year, we'd like to come and make a presentation of where we're at and what we've been up to. We were trying to do it towards the end of this month. It sounds like you have some other activities planned. So at some point in January, we'll pick a date where we can just update you on where we are. Okay? Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Michael.
So we're up to liaison reports on our agenda. Kathy, you have liaison?
Sure, I'll start with Human Services and the new Senior Center at next Tuesday's work session. I'd like to have 3 topics discussed, and they'll all be devoted to the new Senior Center. The first will focus on the preliminary clearing that we'll need to do at 403 Abraham's Path. You know, we've got permission from U.S. Fish and Wildlife to clear between the window of December 1st and February 28th. We're looking to go out for bid the end of November. Bids back middle of December. Clearing would take place then in January and or February. So Matt Jedlicka from McLean will be here to give us an overview of the work that's needed for that. Then we'll segue into the environmental assessment. We've done the long form EAF. Matt Jedlicka, again at McLean, was hired to prepare that. The assessment will articulate and review potential impacts from clearing, construction, and operation of the proposed facility and its operations. The EAF is subject to a full public hearing, and the town board is the lead agency. His presentation will also include the traffic study that was conducted, and then the EAF will be reviewed by the planning board. And while not part of the secret process, the ARB is also going to review the application and offer formal comments to the town board in accordance with their responsibilities under the code. And then we'll segue into the third presentation, which is design development and cost analysis. We had seen their presentation probably about a month ago. If the board has any other questions on what was presented, that would be helpful. We'll go through a project cost summary, and how that, gets built. That's, based on the site cost impacts, the net zero cost impacts, because we want to lead by example, and we have the emergency climate declaration. We're adding costs up front, but it's going to help us on maintenance on the back end. And if the board feels that has a little, sticker shock from the cost, we can look at potential deducts if we want to bring the cost down. So that'll be hopefully a robust conversation, and then we can as well discuss next steps, because we want to get this shovel on the ground, as David would say. The other happenings at the current center, I just wanted to say I have a resolution on today for a donation of a piano from the Old Whalers Church in Sag Harbor. Bruce Byer and Brad Byer, members of the church, have volunteered to transport the piano, and the seniors are very excited about the sing-alongs that will happen now that they have a working piano. I'm also going to have a resolution on Thursday, because the current lesser orchestral player piano can no longer be repaired, so we have a resolution to deem it as surplus. And then Diane Patrizio wanted me to mention that there's a trip this Friday to Uncle Giuseppe's in Western Suffolk. The bus leaves the senior center at 9 a.m. The trip is for anyone 60 plus, and those interested should call 631-324-4443. And then last week, the East Hampton CAC met. For old business, we discussed their support of the e-bike legislation, which is on for public hearing this Thursday. We're concerned about folks riding their bikes on the sidewalks along North Main Street. Another old business topic that we discussed was the concern by neighbors of West Drive and Mars Park Lane about cars and trucks cutting through and going at excessive speeds. So at the November 21st work session, Rob will have proposed legislation for an additional stop sign on West Drive and weight limits of 8,000 pounds on those 2 sections of road. We have a similar restriction on weight limits of 8,000 pounds on Indian Wells Highway. The new business we discussed included something that was new to all of us. Apparently Suffolk County is no longer sponsoring adoptive highway on county roads. So the members of the East Hampton CAC had been a adopter of Queens Lane, Springs Park Place Road from Queens Lane down to the Fork. So they want to continue their monthly litter pickups, but they're going to do that. They're going to try to coordinate with the Litter Action Committee and also with the town's highway department. And they'd like to see about getting the trash bags from the highway department because originally they had gotten them from the county. David had sent to me a request by the county for no standing around the entrance to the Golden Eagle on North Main Street. And it was unanimously supported by the East Hampton CAC. Anything that we can do that can quiet really and improve lines of sight there, and maybe the next one we can work on is around a little bit further north by the gas station and the convenience store. There was also overall concern for the traffic patterns along North Main Street, as the CAC sees North Main Street now as being a much busier hub. People are shopping there more because folks can't afford to shop in the village. So they have concerns there, and also talked about the street lights on North Main seemed dim to them. And you and I talked on some of it, you felt was some pruning that needed to be done for the trees there.
That's one aspect of it, yes.
Yeah. And then I have a resolution on for Thursday. We're going to create a new special reserve account for the Montauk Playhouse Community Center Foundation to accept their donation. I believe that's coming at the December meeting. And I just wanted to close with saying, once again, someone perpetrated an act of hatred in Montauk over the weekend, this time on Veterans Day. And I want to focus on what the school children of Montauk modeled for all of us after the police had investigated the crime tape had come down. They painted over the swastikas with white paint, and then the kids came in and painted smiley faces and hearts and peace and kindness. And, as a community, we need to continue to open our hearts to each other and, accept each other's differences and lead with peace and love. So once again, the kids led the way and brought us the strong message of what it's community that makes us so special here. And that's what I have for today.
One of the signs that they painted on there, which is, congratulations to the board, Peter, for your support too. It says Montauk is a skate town, not a hate town.
It's awesome.
It's
a t-shirt.
Yeah. Okay, the Atlantic States Marine Fishery Council has a striped pass public hearings for New York State. This is a draft addendum that they had to the fisheries management plan. There's going to be public hearings for this at MRAC, this Marine Resources Division, the DEC, on Monday, November 4th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. And that's going to be in Kings Park. And then Monday, December 18th, from 6 to 8 p.m. That'll be a new part. So please contact the state DEC, MRAC, Marine Resources Advisory Council for more information, or my office if you have any questions or concerns about that. The Community Housing Advisory Board met last week. They continued to move along. They actually agreed upon the policy for the grading of any potential applications that would be coming in. This grading material was actually reflected or templated after some of the Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee, and that's what the committee was been working so hard to get towards right now. They also, the chair and the committee members that were present also stated that we want the committee to go on to the financial disclosure, to file financial disclosure. So we're gonna have to change chapter 24 in the town code to put that committee on there. I'll be bringing that forward because it has to be done through a public hearing, also for changing the code. The advisory board also commented on they are moving forward right now with devising how they want to move forward with potential applications for wash and such, and looking at the budgetary decisions made for that, and that will be discussed in December. So they're working hard, moving ahead to get to some of these dates and some of these goals that we have put forward since the referendum that was passed last November, a year ago, under the support and leadership of Peter Van Scoyk. As far as coming to infrastructure, I want to let the town board know that the Fisheries Gear Storage location has been completed. We've received all of the applicants for that gear storage location, and we'll be having a polled lottery tomorrow under the watch of Rob Connolly, Tim Treadwell, myself, and we'll be placing fisheries and gear storage individuals into those locations very, very shortly then too. Also happening in Montauk currently today, actually, the IGA parking lot, street right away on South Elder is being repainted in the diagonal fashions, which hopefully will allow for individuals to go one way out towards South Emerson instead of coming north onto the highway. This has been supported by the CAC, and that's moving forward currently right now. The MTA fixed the railroad crossing on industrial roads. I thank you to the MTA, Hector Garcia and others right now. That whole roadway was actually starting to come up at the crossing and affect people's tires. Lastly, one of the ones on infrastructure right now is that we had the town board supported the installation of underwater trail marker sign kiosk. We accepted that from the Long Island Dive Association for the HMS Culloden's site. That sign has been installed 2 weeks ago. I welcome everyone down there to go learn about some of the history. I thank Barry Lipsky and others for donating that. And then also the land management has installed another kiosk sign at Ditch Plains Comfort Station Beach for the Rhymestein Park. And they're continuing to let everyone know where the trailheads are. And recreation, there's still time to sign up for the Turkey Trot, which is happening next Thursday. You can do that online at Elite Feats or go through the town's recreational website. Look forward to seeing everyone there.
It's hard to believe Thanksgiving is shocking.
It's hard to believe I put January up already. That's my three calendars, my house. And all right, Phil, I don't have a weekend available for kids, but that's my problem, not your problem. I want to give everyone, as Kathy had mentioned, the playoffs update as far as the acceptance of the funds, but we actually extended the bid deadline in agreement. That bid deadline is going to be extended for another couple of weeks there, as there were some questions that we wanted to make sure that the entire all the recipients of that bid documents were actually allowed to come back appropriate and get some extra time. So that's still moving forward well, and people are excited. I want to let everyone know as far as the basketball court in Montauk and also the pickleball courts in Montauk, where you're outside the vendor's window laying down the epoxy coating on there because of the temperatures right now and the temperatures and the moisture in the air. So we'll be doing that in the fall, but we're going to put down temporary lines at the pickleball and the basketball court so individuals can this fall. What's that? This fall. Okay. Yeah, they're immediately in the next couple of weeks. So people can play on those courts through the winter time, and we'll be putting the epoxy courts down as the weather allows in the springtime of 24. I want to thank New York State DOT for working with New York State Parks and the town of East Hampton and Assemblyman Thiel as individuals that travel and traverse in that peak stretch. We had a 30-day emergency permit to fell trees. That 30-day window has expired, and they did as much tree felling as they possibly could. It is transforming the area as far as the trees coming down and the way that individuals have seen the canopy of trees hanging, but it is been many of the hazard trees have been removed. I will be working with the DOT and state parks about the hazard trees that are still there, hopefully working within the window and not through emergency permit, within the window of the long ear bat removal time. So that'll be upcoming. I'll have more information to the board in the weeks ahead on that then too. And some also that traverse that area might also see that there's a new cell phone tower installation upcoming in the New York State Park, in the Heather Hill State Park. Please be alerted that this is a state park tower, and the town board did not have jurisdiction over this. I want to let everyone know that the Nature Preserve Committee also did meet last week. The majority of the members that were present in the Nature Preserve Committee voted recommend to make no changes to the 555 management plan, and that will come back to the town board in a letter from the chairman very shortly. They also discussed maintenance report. There's been bamboo removal at sites on town preserve properties. Also, we've been removing illegal hunting stands on town property, and we're doing our managed mows at this time of year. They're also going to be looking forward to doing another management plan at another CPF property in Amagansett that abuts the back parking lot of Amagansett. Lastly, in historical preservation, two things here is that the Montauk Historical Society installed and relit the 3.5 order Fresnel lens that served the Coast Guard in the lighthouse from 1903 to 1987 when it was removed by the Coast Guard. It's not a new shining light, it's an old shining light over the beautiful tower out there. I would go out there and visit the lighthouse, and particularly when they start doing the Christmas lighting or a holiday lighting on the tower itself upcoming.
Montauk's original disco ball.
Very true.
Right.
And you can be seen for 18 miles.
That's right. I remember seeing it from Rhode Island when I was there. Yeah. In the wintertime.
You can be seen further now then too, which is great. Yeah. Also, this upcoming weekend is the last weekend for the 25th anniversary of the Palmanock Path. Please contact the Hampton Trails Preservation Society for their trails hikes and when they commemorate the 25th anniversary and completion of the Palmanock Path. Lastly, I want to thank the town board. I want to thank town staff, specifically Becky Hansen and also Chelsea Walker for assisting myself and Marilyn Behan, in which we dedicated the John Behan Memorial Park this past weekend in dedication to Mr. Behan, who was a state assemblyman for 18 years, I believe, 9 elections. It was a great turnout by the Montauk community. The park, which is on the corner of West Lake and Flamingo, looks spectacular. It was hard work to get to this point, but it's been thoroughly enjoyed by the community and also by Mrs. Behan. So I thank the town board for their support of that project, and I thank all the veterans for their service also.
Well, David, I want to thank you for taking that on and working with you to get that done. It's been a pleasure and turned out great. That was a corner full of brambles and invasive species, and now it's really a beautiful spot. And I love how the sign turned out with the piles in there. It's very reminiscent of what a nautical, nautical and gateway to the harbor, really. So
the docks
and
fishing capital of the world. That's what's on the sign, right?
Yeah. That's right.
And that's my liaison report. Thank you.
Thank you. Sylvia, do you have a report, please?
I do. I have the Waynescott CAC met on November the 4th at 9 a.m. There were 26 people in attendance by Zoom. They had the postmaster at the Waynescott Post Office attend, Morgan O'Connell, which was very nice of him to talk about post office issues. He also alerted the group to any federal holidays that were coming up, and also said that holiday stamps are available now for purchase. The Orsted has been in the news lately, and so there was a discussion about our own project. And are there any anticipated changes in our easement agreements, especially where the $5 million earmark is for Waynescott projects? And so they are a bit concerned about that. Beach Lane, where new asphalt repaving has shown unanticipated depressions in the asphalt, will be finished with repairs hopefully by the end of this year. Orsted is coordinating with Steve Lynch, and the work must be to the town's satisfaction. So additionally, there are railroad ties at the end of Hedges Lane and some unused equipment that was part of the Orsted project, along with the railroad tracks. And these need to be removed if they haven't already been removed. So I'm gonna ask Kate if she will coordinate with Orsted to see if that is part of their project, or if, and I couldn't answer the question as to if the railroad ties need to be preserved for some reason by the town, if that's what's happening with the railroad ties. Some of the plantings that were planted seem to be dying, and so they wanted to know if those are going to be replaced, if not now, then in the springtime. They also talked about the traffic calming recommendations from the committee to the town. I've spoken to a couple of folks that said they'll be considered probably early in 2024 with the police and the highway superintendent. They were hoping that Barnaby Friedman would be able to provide a map which clearly shows the recommendations. And however, they also noted that there may be some changes. So I would hold off on Barnaby making that map right away, so that we can have a finalized version of the map and the recommendations to give to the police department and the highway superintendent, and to get their comments before anything is actually constructed. The Maidstone Gut Club generated lots of discussion. Town board members received a letter from the Waynescott CAC that expressed their concerns, including safety issues, better use of municipal property, and possible lead contamination. They also wanted to know, and this is a question for Rob, if the appraisal can be released to the public. And I don't know when or if that can be done, especially since the parties are still negotiating any kind of agreements. They did ask that the gun club lease process be as public and transparent as possible. The airport also came up. They are aware that a DEIS is being finalized, and is there a date that the public will be able to comment on it? I need to get back to them with that. On November the 18th, the Waynescott Heritage Project is going to be meeting at the Waynescott Chapel from 10 to 12. And this is in an effort to do a survey on historical buildings or anything historic actually in the hamlet of Waynescott. And in 1990, there was the town of East Hampton did a historical survey, but mostly focused on Main Street. So they would like to have a broader approach to anything new that's coming up. And if you want to be part of that and have more questions, there's also going to be a Zoom option if you can't attend from 10 to 12 at the Waynescott Chapel. You can go to Waynescott Heritage Project, all one word, .org. And on December the 2nd is the last meeting of the year for the Waynescott CAC. And it will be in person at the chapel. And at noon, they will, on December 2nd, the Waynescott CAC traditionally gives their business district awards, and those will be presented at that meeting. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Sylvia. Kate, do you have a report?
Yes, Sylvia, just to answer a couple of those questions, there is no change to our project whatsoever, and including the $5 million that's isolated for Waynescott. As far as railroad ties, can't recall off the top of my head why railroad ties would have been a part of anything that they did in the right-of-way by the railroad. They didn't work on the railroad, which is where the ties should be. They worked in a right-of-way, but I will follow up with that and find out about that and the plantings as well.
I think it's quite likely the railroad ties are MTA, Long Island Railroad's property, and they often pile them up to store them alongside the right of way, so.
But I know that the repaving of Beach Lane is scheduled for this fall and under the supervision of Steve Lynch, and that they are compliant with all the temperature requirements of laying down asphalt and all of the town requirements. I've been on those emails for that thread. I also asked them to give the residents of Beach Lane a 24-hour at least heads up about when the paving will actually take place. I also want to just be grateful to the veterans. Veterans Day was celebrated last week. I attended with other board members the parade in East Hampton and also the raising of the flag in Montauk by the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. And just not wanting to give a lot of attention to the hate stuff, but when you stood there with the veterans who sacrificed so much to fight any type of fascism, it really impacts how low and disgusting those acts of hatred are and have no place here in East Hampton or anywhere. My committees haven't met yet, so I'll yield the rest of my time to the supervisor.
Thank you, Kate. And yeah, I found also those symbols of hate and the swastikas painted in Montauk on Veterans Day, particularly offensive. There are so many who gave the ultimate sacrifice to fight fascism and to eliminate that threat and to promote democracy and the ability of people to live in this country and around the world without fear of repression based on what their religious beliefs or other backgrounds, race, ethnicity.
And really, to those people, you're wasting your paint. Here in East Hampton, it's a waste of paint.
Okay, so again, congratulations to all the newly elected. I'm glad to see that the town will continue in good leadership after Sylvia and I depart the town board at the first of the year. This past Thursday, November 9th, I met with Matt Jedlicka from LK McLean and Chris Hawks from PSEG and some other engineers as well as they initiated the inventory stage and assessment of the Amagansett lighting and utility burial feasibility study. They're in the process of, and on Thursday, they actually conducted inventory of the north side of the highway throughout the business district, checking all the service needs of each individual property there. That will relate to the redesign of the grid for the Amagansett Hamlet downtown. This is a monumental undertaking, really, when you take into account the study area is from Indian Wells to Atlantic Avenue. It's quite a large area, although they've completed most of the downtown business area, which is the densest and highest electric use. Other utilities are involved as well, Verizon, Altice. There is coordination between Verizon and PSEG particularly, and Altice has a little more flexibility about how they operate. But it's quite an undertaking, and in addition to trying to get the utility lines buried underground, there is a component of looking at replacing the existing lighting, which really isn't particularly adequate given the fact that you have a lot of the lights are actually up inside the trees, and particularly when the leaves are out, creates this checkerboard of light, dark as you drive into Amagansett, which is difficult for drivers to pick up pedestrians crossing. You get bright light and then suddenly you're in the dark. It's hard for the eyes to adjust. And so improving that and in keeping with the historic character, there's interest in replacing those cobra lights with more traditional lampposts. So that's an ongoing project. We are hopeful to get some word back from PSEG as to what the estimated costs might be before the end of the year. So stay tuned for that. The Amagansett CAC met yesterday. I was unable to attend, but they had on the agenda Adopt a Road. We're going to discuss Old Stone Highway, possibly Abraham's Path. They also were going to discuss nominations for officers, and last year I had suggested that they wait until after the organizational meeting, the actual appointment of the New Year's members before they hold elections. I don't know if they will follow that advice or not. Let's see. There's been an effort for many years to improve train service here on the South Fork, and the MTA has been discussing the 20-year needs assessment for the South Fork, and there's been some conversations back and forth about trying to find the actual date of that meeting to discuss the needs here on the South Fork. We know that with a single track, trying to schedule trains that work for us, for commuters, has been very difficult. We're thankful for the efforts of Assemblyman Fred Thiel in helping us to convince the LIRR to run additional commuter trains. However, they're still inadequate, the number of trains, and the only way to get beyond those limitations would be to improve the infrastructure here. There are a number of train sidings that are dormant out here, including right in the village, East Hampton and Bridgehampton. None of those are signalized. So even if you were to improve them, you're still going to have to bring them into the signaling system, which, if you remember, was quite a long, lengthy, and expensive process. This would go a long way towards alleviating some of the strain on our single highway coming out, 27, and all the back roads that end up being used as well. We can have more of those commuters out via train and provide last mile service. So we look forward to the date being finalized for that discussion presentation going forward. Let's see, David already mentioned the John Behan Memorial Park. Again, thanks to—
You said some very nice words there, Peter.
Thank you to, John Behan was a person who felt very strongly. He was born on Veterans Day, 1944. And, he really was a homegrown patriot, if you will. He went and was involved as a Marine in what became a very unpopular war, lost both his legs, serving his country. And I think, that was a heroic effort to go. But when he came back, to me, it was even more heroic what he did. When he came back, he didn't let his physical limitations define him, that he went on and served as our town tax assessor, and then became elected state assemblyman from Montauk, and was, reelected, I think, 9 times by majorities of 70%. Went on to, benefit other veterans, heading the Veterans Affairs Bureau. So, but again, David, thank you for working with Marilyn Behan, his widow, and the family in preparing this. And thanks to Fred Thiel and Bridget Fleming for helping get that land from the county transferred to the town for that purpose. And town staff, our buildings and grounds folks, Tony Littman, all who were instrumental in making this happen. There are a number of private businesses that donated work and materials. So it really was a community effort, and it was a really nice turnout. Have that dedication on his birthday on Veterans Day. Saturday, we had a gathering of the East Hampton Trails Preservation Committee. That organization has for 30 years worked on promoting our local trails, clearing the trails, leading hikes, whatnot. This was one of their series of a number of different hikes that they led, culminating at Third House and talking about the county park and about Third House, that historic keeper's house. One of 3 originally in Montauk, but only 2 are remaining. First house is gone. And then on Sunday, back at Third House again for Third House Nature Center, which is operated, their organization bringing environmental issues, concerns, as well as introducing people to the flora and fauna, particularly of the Third House and the county park there, but all over in Montauk. That organization was also instrumental in helping us preserve Fort Pond House, which previous administration had slated that 4 acres for sale, which would have obviously resulted in some large homes and development right on Fort Pond. It's now beautifully restored bungalow from circa 1925, one of the earliest remaining houses in Montauk. Also coming up, Boys and Girls Harbor ADA accessible rec path is slated to be paved next week and completing a multi-year dream of having another ADA accessible path in one of our parks. David, you were instrumental in helping get the Zachary Cohen recreation path done at Buckskill Preserve. That's enjoyed by many. Having a safe place to teach your children how to ride a bicycle or take a stroller, or a person who has limited accessibility in a wheelchair or such can enjoy nature. It's been a goal of the advisory committee, the disability advisory committee for some time, and Glenn Hall, who's on the town property management committee, when we looked at parks, trying to find ways of bringing more accessibility to our parks. I have a resolution on which would ratify the CSCA contract with our union, and we'll have a vote on that in just a minute. But those discussions took place in good faith, and I think we reached an agreement over compensation and benefits for our labor union that reflect both the interests of the general public and our taxpayers, as well as acknowledging the expertise and professionalism of our town workers and the changing work environment and our need to be competitive within that labor market. And that's what I have. So I believe, Kathy, you have the first resolution.
I do. I have Resolution 2023-1438 is to accept the donation of a piano donated by the Old Whalers Church. And we offer thanks to the church and to Bruce Byer and Brad Byer for the donation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carrie, good luck moving it, because I know those pianos are heavy.
I'd like to offer Resolution 2023-1439. This is to attend the conference for 2 aquaculture employees, which is at the Northeast Aquaculture Conference Exposition in Milford, Aquaculture Seminar in Providence, Rhode Island on January 10th to the 12th, 2024 for John Dunn and Samir Jonas. And the financial impact is $2,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's hard to call Barley John.
Yeah. Yes, it was. I'd like to offer Resolution 2023-1440. This is authorize the CPF acquisition and amend the 2023 Management and Stewardship Plan. The ownership is Luis and Victoria Bustamante, locations at 12 South Flag Street, 29 North Faraday Street, 26 North Faraday Street, 7 North Faraday Street, South Franklin Street, South Essex Street, and South Field Street. This is 12.6 acres of vacant land. The public hearing was held on November 2nd. Reported purchase price is not to exceed $4,400,000.
Second.
All in favor?
I have just a discussion on that. I do believe once that some of the comments that were held by one of the community members that was also mentioned during the public hearing, that during the title report phase of this, it would disclose any ownership issues that might be out there, but if not, we will move ahead with this. I also do believe that the interagency materials on the that the town's policy under the public officer law is correct. And then until the transaction is fully consummated, I don't believe that that interagency material should be released.
So we have a second. All in favor? Aye. Passed and carried.
I'd like to offer 1441 as routine DB Bennett for engineering services for, you know what everyone know? The 395 Panago project, affordable housing got actually authorized by the planning board 2 weeks ago. So that project's going to move ahead and it's been fully authorized and approved by the planning board. So
excellent.
Apologize.
That's great.
So
we're happy about that.
Yes, we are. Okay, 14. Sorry, Carol. 1441 is routine DB Bennett engineering services for 395 Panago Road. This is actually for the drainage construction and professional services for engineering site clearing for the subdivision at 395 Panago. It actually should be 16 unit subdivision. So if I can change it in the first whereas clause that's on there.
Yeah.
And this is not to exceed $12,500 from a proposal dated October 26, 2023.
Second is amended.
We can open and then.
So we have a second is amended. All in favor?
The first whereas clause, it says 12-unit subdivision. It should say 16-unit subdivision. Okay.
Do we have an all in favor?
Do we have an all in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
All right, resolution 2023-1442 is an easement. Public hearing was held by the town board on November 2nd, and the proposed grant of a scenic and conservation easement to the town. And the acceptance of the easement was submitted and heard, is hereby found to be in the best interest of the town. The grantor is Dana, Eric, Ian, and Jason Spencer, as I said, scenic and conservation easement, and it's at 21 Fenwick Road in Montauk.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 2023-1443 is also an easement. Silva accept a grant of a scenic easement. A public hearing was also held on November the 2nd for the proposed grant of a scenic easement. As submitted and heard, is hereby found to be in the best interest of the town. The grantor is Silva Development, Inc. The easement is scenic and conservation. It is at 39 Bayview Avenue in Amagansett, and the reviewing agency is the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
And I have 2023-1444, charging stations, engineering design subcontractors, and this is where the town adopted a resolution to retain LK McLean Associates to provide professional services to design a new electric service and 10 dual port level 2 charging stations, whereas LKMA has submitted a revised proposal to include subcontractors on the project in no change in total cost for the completion of work, whereas the work completed by Bloodhound LLC shall not exceed $515, work by Nelson and Pope shall not exceed $16,500, and work by McLean shall not exceed $19,985. Be it resolved that the revised proposal of the same cost with the subcontractors added shall be accepted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
Resolution 2023-1445 is to approve change order 3 East Hampton LED lighting project. Whereas in 2018, the town entered into agreement with New York Power Authority to replace its current inventory of streetlights with state-of-the-art LEDs. The town has received change proposal number 3 for the installation of 15 additional post-top fixtures on County Road 77, which is West Lake Drive in Montauk. The cost of the proposal for installation is $3,622.89, and the cost for the materials for the post-op fixtures and nodes is $30,350. The total cost for the installation for the 15 fixtures shall not exceed $33,972.89 and is within the budget set aside for LED replacements throughout the township. Resolved that change proposal number 3 is hereby approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
Resolution 23-1446 is to authorize an emergency road repair for Lincoln Avenue. Whereas the town has been informed that an emergency road repair is needed on Lincoln Avenue, a road not in the town highway system, specifically the filling of dangerous potholes. Whereas the superintendent of highways has been made aware of the potholes and is determined that the repair is needed, be it resolved that the town board authorizes the highway department to make the necessary emergency repairs to Lincoln Avenue.
Second, and I'd just like to disclose that I live down the block from these potholes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. Resolution 1447 is to waive fees, false fire alarm, East Hampton High School, and that is not to exceed the amount of $125.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried. Resolution 1448 is to ratify a memorandum of agreement between the town of East Hampton and CSEA. And that is resolved that upon the incorporation of the memorandum of agreement into the accessor collective bargaining agreement in the form approved by the town attorney, the supervisor is authorized to execute the collective bargaining agreement with the CSEA covering the term January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2027.
Second. Congratulations.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. Thank you. That concludes our public portion of the meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss CPF, advice of counsel, personnel, and potential litigation.
Second.
Favor? Aye. Passed, carried. We will return at 3 o'clock. Or so. Work for folks? Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Stay safe. Be well, everyone. Thank you, LTV.